Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our drive before the main drive. It is a very wet afternoon indeed. It was quite dry most of the day, and just as we started to get together, heavens have decided to, and so it promises to be a rather wet afternoon. Now, because it's quite wet, it's going to be one of those drives where I think we're going to struggle a little bit with some of the animals. Most of them are going to try and look for some sort of protection from this bleak rain that is coming down. It's also quite cool this afternoon, so I would imagine most of them are going to try and huddle together for a bit of body warmth. So what we're going to try and do is probably head towards where Jamie had the Nkahuma Pride this morning and see if I can maybe find anything on them. I'd imagine they are going to seek some sort of shelter, so I'm hoping it's not in too thick bush, because I know Jamie had a bit of a struggle with it this morning. She said to me that they were lying in a horrible place, and because of the rain we are looking like the Flintstones. We have our roof covers on, and it's a little bit more difficult to get into those harder reach places when it's like this, so we'll just see how that goes. But we can't complain, the rain is good. We need the rain. It's very nice, soft soaking rain, so it's perfect for filling up all the water holes and soaking into the ground and promoting lots of growth, which is always great news. Oh, we have some oncoming traffic. We're on the access road for Vuyatela, so sometimes we do get this. Hi guys. Hello. Thank you. They're just going to let these cars pass. It's much easier for these game drive vehicles to go off-road than normal vehicles. And that's Rexon that's going past. So Rexon coming back to work. He's had a week's leave. So yeah, I think he's on his way back to start work tomorrow. Now, the only good thing with this rain is that it should be quite good for frogs a little bit later, so it'll be nice to see what frogs come out a little bit later this afternoon. And then, of course, the birds. The birds will all probably be down and sitting and hunkering down, trying not to get too cold and wet, so it should be quite good for a bit of birding this afternoon as well. So as you can see, the main road is quite busy. I know, Lou's saying it's like a highway, and I couldn't agree more, Lou. We've timed this quite badly coming down here, but I suppose everybody's trying to get back before the game drives go out, so I would imagine that's why it's a little bit busy on this road. I'm a bit envious of them though. They're in these nice windscreened vehicles and they look all nice and dry and comfortable. And I can tell you what, that's going to be the furthest thing from our afternoon. We're going to be nice and wet and pretty chilly, I would imagine, especially if the wind keeps up. You can see in front of me the wind is blowing a little bit now, so hopefully that dies down a little bit. Now I wonder where those other two Nkahuma females are. I'm sure that this Pride, the 3 and the cubs have been calling so much over the last 2 days that I'm sure they're trying to find those other two, and I actually have no idea where they are. I haven't heard any reports of them. I know, hopefully they would be somewhere close by, so let's see, maybe this afternoon we'll get them.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to a live safari here in the driving rain, starting off with Africa's largest land mammal. This is safariLIVE.
Ready.
Standing by.
Hello and welcome to a very damp and soggy sunset safari out here in the African wilderness. My name is Jamie, and this afternoon Craig is on camera with me, and a very special warm welcome to the schools joining us today. That's Hampton Oaks and College Park Elementary Schools. It's lovely to have you guys on board, and I hope you are all really excited to be on a live safari, just as excited as we are to be taking you on a live safari. Hey, my boy, don't worry. Don't you come cause any nonsense. There we go. I'm just shuffling around because, as you can see, it's a little bit damp this afternoon, so we do have a roof covering us to make sure our equipment doesn't get wet. We're coming to you live from a place called the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. So we're right up in the top northeastern corner, and any of our regular viewers, we will be taking your questions after we're finished with the school drive, so you can send those through to #safariLIVE on Twitter, or email through to questions@wildearth.tv. And isn't this elephant absolutely lovely? A young male who might even be curious enough to come up and investigate us and see what we're up to. Now, as you can see, he is all on his own, and that's because young male elephants move away from the herd when it is time for them to do so, basically when they're adults and they are ready to go out and explore the world. And often you'll see young bulls like this in a group, just for a little bit of extra safety and comfort. And now, hello my boy. Hello my boy. It's okay. It's okay. You know, if you walk behind me and try and look very big and scary, I'm not going to even see you. Just so you know. Isn't that cool? Don't do that. Now, Katie, you want to know what elephants eat. And sorry, Katie, I can't move at the moment to show you this elephant. Our elephants love... Oh, sorry, Tatey. Tatey, you want to know what elephants eat. Well, Tatey, they eat plants. They only eat plants and tubers and bulbs, leaves off trees, bark. They dig down to underneath the surface of the ground to pull up tubers, so things that are kind of like potatoes, but you get different types out here. And at the moment, the elephants are absolutely loving the grass. So that is what they're eating lots of. And of course, fruit. There's also marula fruits, which is a very sweet, really delicious type of fruit that the elephants are enjoying. So that's what they're eating now at the moment. So this young male is currently wrapping up trunks full of grass, and then putting it in his mouth. And I'm just waiting for a second, just so that he's not so close to us, before we reposition to try and see him again. There we go. Now he's moving off. So we're going to try and turn around. And while we do, it's not just myself out here. Somebody is wrapped up nice, warm and dry in a tent. Let's go along and say hello to Brent.
Hello and welcome to my safari tent, where I am warm and dry and I get to laugh at everyone getting wet. Hello to Hampton Oaks, and now I've forgotten the school. Oh dear. Wait 1 second. College Park, I should be able to remember that. Well, I've got some cool stuff for you in the tent today, and the nice thing about being here is we've got some really fun stuff that we can have a little bit of a closer look at the bush. And my name is Brent. I have Brian on camera, and he's got a ninja thumb. Wah! I better behave, otherwise Brian's thumb will jump out from behind the camera and sort me out. Now, they're being ninjaing around under my microscope. These are very, very cool. Let's just move them into the right spot. Oh, look at that. Isn't that scary looking? And isn't that very, very cool? Now, I will try. Let's just try it. Ooh, now we've got a disco going on. There we go. Now you can see those tiny little black spines, where I put a little bit more light on, sticking off. Now I'm going to turn the light off so we can have a look at the body a bit more. There we go. So you can see those spines. I'm going to try and get the head, which is feeding at the moment. Now this is where it becomes a bit tricky. Ooh, 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 ooh. Very tricky. Other way. And Why is this so hard, Brian? I have no idea. But you can see. So this is a baby butterfly. And I can only, there we go. I'm playing the wrong way, that's why. That is the back end. I'm just going to move. Now, my friend James, who likes to live in the tent, he's much better. Okay, there we go. Oh, I think we got him now. So, back quickly. I finally got it there. So, there's the head of this butterfly larvae. And you can see it's munching on the plant that's under there. Now, it's a very important plant, and this butterfly species actually chooses to lay its eggs on this plant and almost only on this plant. And they're actually very tiny, even though they look like big and scary under the microscope. Now, it is my favorite family of butterflies. No, you're moving out of shot. Naughty butterfly. There we go. One little more poke. One more poke. Oh no! Ah, Tivan, you're very clever, and I'm very bad at keeping this thing in frame. Or let's just look at the back side for now. Now, Tivan is wondering, is this caterpillar poisonous? Now, Tivan, you're very clever. I was about to tell you about the plant it's eating. This plant doesn't even have an English name. It's only got a scientific name. It's called Waltharia indica. And this plant has poison in its leaves, and its poison is called hydrogen cyanide. Oh, that sounds quite scary. So, if these baby butterflies, these caterpillars, and you can actually see it swallowing the plant as it chews through. Let's try get its head back in shot. There we go. As it chews and it munches its way through these leaves, and I'll show you what it looks like when the caterpillar has been munching on the leaf. And they, as I said, they get hydrogen cyanide. And when they pupate, so they go into their pupa to become a beautiful, beautiful butterfly, and they are a beautiful butterfly when they come out, and their adults are poisonous. So this means they don't have to fly around fast. They can just sort of flap around, take their time, because they're brightly colored. And this tells all the birds that they're going to get very, very sick if they eat this particular butterfly. And as caterpillars, those scary spines are what keep the birds from eating them. Now, you can have a look. I'm just going to be very careful because I'm going to put them back outside. And you can have a look at the leaf. And you can see how they've eaten all the holes through the leaf. And another way they defend themselves, because the leaf actually sits like this. Oh no, now the birds can't see me. So they eat from the underside. Oh, I'm sorry, my game drive radio is on. Let me just turn that off. Oop. So I can listen to what everyone's up to, because I'm very curious. I don't like to not know what's going on. Okay, but now I've got, there we go. So that is what the adult butterfly looks like, that one right there. So that is the male, and that is the female. And there's the caterpillar we just saw. And there's the Waltharia plant. Now, Mary is wondering, do the spines on their back hurt? They don't hurt, Mary. They do something worse. They itch. And they itch, and they itch, and you just want to scratch your face off. It's so ticklish. Not ticklish, it's worse than ticklish. It's burning itching. Now, Brian can stay inside because he's got a camera and it's raining, but I want to put the caterpillars back on their tree. And my friend James, who likes to live in the tent, made a scarecrow to keep the birds away from his caterpillars. Okay, so well, I can enjoy the rain because I'm out here for 2 seconds before having to dash back into my tent. Let's go back to Jamie, who's still with that elephant.
It seems as though our Ellie is enjoying the rain just as much as Brent is when he ventures out of his tent every now and again. And look at this, he is having such a fantastic dirt bath. And this is something that elephants absolutely love to do. They kick up the dust and the dirt with their feet and then grab it with their trunk and throw it over their shoulders, over their skin, up between their legs. And that's because it feels nice for them, particularly because it gets to all of those itchy spots that perhaps they can't reach when they rub up against trees. And also at the same time, it helps to coat the skin and helps to dislodge the external parasites that sit on elephants, things like ticks that might be stuck up under their tails around there. Hey, big boy. So that's why he's been having a little bit of a dirt bath, and of course it helps that he's all damp, so it sticks to his skin beautifully. Now he's going to vanish off in a moment, so let's see if we can get one last view of him. Now, Silo, you want to know, do elephants like the rain? Or else, how do they stay dry? Well, they can't stay dry at all. Oh, he's going to disappear. He can't stay dry at all, unfortunately. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere for him to shelter. He could probably go and stand underneath a tree, but even then, that won't really work to help to keep him dry. I think elephants do like the rain a little bit. I don't think it bothers them too much. They can go and eat as much as they want. And of course, when you're as big as an elephant, usually at this time of year, they'd be feeling really, really warm, because sometimes the temperatures out here get over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And even though an elephant has a very sophisticated cooling mechanism, or an internal air conditioning unit in the form of their massive ears and blood vessels close to the skin, they still must feel very, very warm on these hot days. So for him, a nice cool rainy day is probably a great reason to go wandering about more than he might otherwise. And usually when I've seen elephants playing, it's often when it's cool, even if it's first thing in the morning or perhaps on a cool and cloudy day. That's when you see elephants playing together. And elephants do play just like human beings play. And unfortunately, I think that's going to be our last view of him as he moves off into the vegetation. So elephants play with each other, particularly male elephants. They like to practice fighting. Now he's moving off, and Tivan, you want to know how far and fast do elephants move? The answer to that is actually pretty far and pretty fast. Even when they're walking, for them, what would be a relatively slow pace, that's still quite fast compared to us, because their legs are so long that they cover so much ground. And an elephant can be active all the way through the day and also into the evening as well, so at night. Now they'll feed during the evenings as well in the dark. They don't have to worry too much about predators. Now it seems as though our elephant has disappeared, but luckily Tristan's found something else for you to look at.
Good afternoon, everybody. Unfortunately, Jamie, I haven't found anything just yet. We are on the search for some lions, so we are looking around. Now, my name is Tristan, and on camera today I have Wiem, the wildebeest. So that's who's on the back and operating the camera so expertly. And a special warm welcome to College Park in Hampton Oaks. It's great to have you guys with us. Now, like I was saying, we're on the search for some lions. So Jamie this morning had a pride of lions in this area, and so we've seen there's a few tracks around, and we even spotted one or two vultures. And now vultures could be a sign that maybe there's some food around that the lions have found, and so we're just checking just to see if we can see any more signs of them. So far it's a little bit difficult with the rain, because as the rain is falling, it's washing away the tracks a little bit, so it's becoming quite hard to follow. But I'm hoping that if maybe they had food or they have food, then they're going to be very, very stationary, because they'll likely had a very big meal, and this cold, wet weather is perfect for them just to try and find somewhere to go and lie down and rest and try and get out of the rain. So I'm just going to check. There's a little water hole here that they sometimes like to come to. Now on a day like today, they're not really going to come to a water hole because there's really no need. It's not hot enough to drive them to water, and if they are thirsty, as you can see on the roads, there's lots and lots of water around. So they can come and drink anywhere around here. And Lou was saying to me that we've had about 4.5 mils of rain today, so not very much, but given that we've had quite a bit of rain over the last week and very little sunshine, it's all sitting on the surface now. The soil has become quite saturated, and so that's why it's sitting on the roads, and it looks a lot wetter than what it actually is, or it looks like we've had a lot more rain than what we really have. So let's see if there's any sign of anything in the dam. I do see an animal, but I'm going to have to just turn the car a little bit because we've got our Flintstone flaps on, the rain covers that keep us protected. So I'm just going to have to turn so that Vian can see what I can see. But inside the water, we have a beautiful waterbuck. So very aptly named. This animal, like I said, is called a waterbuck, and that's because it spends most of its life in and around water. So it will utilize water to get away from predators, but it also will often come down for a drink, and sometimes they even walk through the water, and it just helps with keeping their coat in good condition, getting rid of some of the parasites that latch onto them, and they can then stay safe. Now, it's interesting because this is a female waterbuck. We know it's a girl because she has no horns. The male waterbuck has really big horns that come off his head, and so because she doesn't have any, we know she's a girl. But the strange thing about it is that generally the females are in small groups together. You would very seldom see a female on her own, unless maybe she's just given birth and she's got a baby close by, or she maybe has been separated. You never know, maybe those lions came through here earlier today and have somehow separated this waterbuck from the rest of the group, and that's why she's standing so close to the water in hope that she doesn't get chased. And if she does see the lions, she can run deeper into the water and avoid them, because the cats, they don't really like to get into the water too much, so they're going to avoid trying to go in here to fetch her, which is a very clever way to get away. So, Joe, you're asking what are mils or millimeters? Well, Joe, millimeters is this unit that we use to measure. So you will use inches for your rain, but here in South Africa we use the British system, so we use millimeters. It's a little bit of a different system, and I think it is 10 mils to a centimeter, and there's 2.52, I think, or 5 centimeters. Now, if we've had 4 millimeters of rain, it's basically about a quarter inch, or a little bit less than a quarter inch, so somewhere around there. So not too much at this stage, but it's really great rain for the environment because it's soft and soaking rain, and so these dams and pan areas are all filling up nicely as the water is slowly seeping in, as well as it's really good for the growth of grass, because if we had a really big storm and lots of rain falls very quickly, then most of that rain will wash away and it'll fill into the dams or into the riverbeds and flow away, and we won't get too much visual of it or see any signs of it. But if it soaks into the ground, it allows the grass to then grow and the trees to have lots of leaves, so it's really, really good. Now, our waterbuck is still sitting there. He's just, or she should I say, so he's just peering up the little riverbed, and I wonder if maybe she can see something up there. In this kind of weather, she's going to be a lot more alert because the rain is going to make it very difficult for her to hear any sounds of predators moving, and also it'll be very difficult for her to smell or see them. It's become a lot darker and it's dingy, and so really tough when it comes to actually spotting predators. And that's also probably why she's sitting right out in the open. She knows it's much easier to see any of these lions if she's out in the open. It means the lions have got to get somewhere close to her to be able to hunt her. Now, what you will notice with this waterbuck is that it's got a very big white ring on its bum, and that white ring is all there so that she can follow one another. So if she has a little baby, the baby can see its mom when it's walking in front of her and know that that's then a safe place to follow and so a safe place to go because mom is safe. And if they're in a herd, the same thing applies. They can see the different herd members and be able to see which way is the best path to take through those thickets. But it's a very funny little marking that they've got. It almost looks like a bullseye on their bum, and lots of people often make that remark. Now, the interesting thing about this waterbuck is if you have a look, it looks like it's completely dry. It doesn't look like there's any rain on it. I don't know if any of you have got a cat or a dog, and if you put them in the rain, they get very, very wet and they look as though they've been put in a bath of water. Now, this waterbuck is still very fluffy, and the reason why it's so fluffy is because it's got special glands in its skin, and those glands secrete oils that repel water and basically push the water away and keep that little waterbuck very, very dry. Now, talking of dry, we're going to go across to my friend Brent, who's in his tent and is apparently very warm and dry.
It's so lovely here, isn't it, man?
It is.
I was thinking we should almost get a little heater for the tent. Much more comfortable.
Or a fireplace.
Or a fireplace. Oh, with canvas, plastic, fire. Outside fire. But then we'd have to sit in the rain. Oh, no. But guess what it is? We can imagine we're sitting around an African campfire because it's story time. So we're going to tell an African folklore. This one comes from a country to the north of us called Zimbabwe, and it is from the Shona people. And all African folktales have good life lessons in them. So they were used to impart knowledge onto the children and to teach you how to be a good person. And this is the story how Elephant learned to not be so proud. Now, one day Elephant was walking down the path. I'm going to go outside and walk towards you, Brian, so I can get the elephant movements going. And let us pretend, what shall we pretend, is a little squirrel. What can we use as a squirrel that's in our tent? Here we go. That can be the squirrel. Okay, that is the squirrel. And the elephant was thinking to itself, how big I am, how beautiful I am. I must just be the most amazing animal in all the bush. And Squirrel was in the path, also heading towards the waterfall, and Elephant just went, out of my way, Squirrel, you're too small and insignificant. And Squirrel got very angry, and hopefully the guys out in the field will be able to show you an African bush squirrel or a tree squirrel. So when they get angry, they flick their tails and go, so the squirrel started scolding Elephant. Said, who do you think you are, you great big behemoth of a beast, you vile creature? And says, I will teach you a lesson, Elephant. I will teach you a lesson. And Elephant said, what lesson can you teach me, you silly little squirrel? And the squirrel said, I challenge you to a palm nut eating competition. At that, Elephant let out a great harumph. Squirrel, I could eat more palm nuts than you could ever eat. Said, well, fine, Elephant. Tomorrow at dawn, we will eat palm nuts. Elephant thought, I really shouldn't oblige such a small, insignificant squirrel, but I quite like palm nuts, so I'm going to do it. So, the next morning, a squirrel and Elephant lined up with a massive pile of palm nuts each, and they started eating. And of course, Elephant was going, using his big trunk and putting 5 or 6 palm nuts in his mouth at a time, while Squirrel just sat there. But Elephant was so nonplussed about the challenge and was also a bit of a greedy guts that he forgot to watch Squirrel. So when Squirrel got full, Squirrel's brother came. And when Squirrel's brother got full, Squirrel's sister came. And his aunt, and his uncle, and his cousins, and the squirrels in the African bush, sitting there eating. And at about midday, Elephant went, Squirrel, you're still going? Squirrel said, yes, I'm not even hungry yet. So Elephant started eating faster, and eventually, by the end of the day, Elephant was so fat he fell over. And little Squirrel, the first squirrel, was now back and still eating. And eventually, Elephant said, oh, Squirrel, you are so wonderful, you are so mighty, I was so wrong to flick you out of my way, and I'm so sorry, you are incredible. Well, I became live radio. And of course, Squirrel said, well, thank you, Elephant. Now you must stop being... hit my head. You must stop being mean to the other animals because you are big. You have responsibility to be nice to everyone and set an example. So there's lots of little lessons to learn in the African folklores, and there's a nice little one. And hopefully we can see a squirrel maybe even riding on an elephant. No, I'm joking. Squirrels don't ride elephants. But ever since that day, Squirrel has had the elephant's respect. Now, let's go see how Jamie's doing in that wet weather.
Oh, we're doing absolutely fine, thank you, Brent. Driving along into the rain and searching for exciting things to show you. Apparently, Brent has been telling you stories about elephants and squirrels. And he mentioned that perhaps we should try and find you one. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a squirrel to show you this afternoon. And of course, anything else that we happen to stumble upon. We're just going to keep searching, and I know of a few squirrel holes, so perhaps we can check them and see whether or not the squirrels are sheltering away from the bad weather. Can't tell if that's somebody behind me. It is somebody behind me. Luckily they let me know by revving up behind me. Otherwise I would never have seen them. There we go. Bye. Water dripping everywhere. And of course, in weather like this, sometimes the roads, dirt roads, get a little bit tricky to drive. Especially when there's lots of vehicles on them. They get lots of holes and all sorts of other things that make them slightly slower to drive along. I'm going up this road now. My idea is to turn and face that way, because the rain is coming from behind me now, so hopefully not so much will fall into the car with me. There we go, that's better. Perfect. Very good question from Asher, who would like to know, do predators like the rain, or do they hide away? Asher, sometimes, if they're not particularly hungry, then they might go and shelter underneath a thick bush, and that's exactly what the lions were doing this morning when we were with them. They were tucked away underneath the leaves and the branches of a particular tree that provided them with a little bit of shelter. But actually, usually, this sort of weather is really, really good predator weather, and that's because it's not too hot, so they don't have to worry about overheating, and also because there's so much rain, there's quite a lot of noise, which means that the animals that they would hunt, just like these impala, might not actually hear them coming. Hello, boys. And that's also why animals like these impala are actually quite skittish in weather like this, and that's because especially when there's wind blowing, they can't hear as well, and as it starts to get dark, you can imagine their wind is blowing, and yes, they can see better than we can in the dark, but still, it's dark, wind is blowing, the leaves are rustling, they don't know if it's leaves rustling or a predator coming to get them. So this is a type of antelope known as an impala, and this is a bachelor herd of impala, so it's made up of only boys gathered together, and they will spend their time also similar to the elephants, sort of playing but really sparring with each other, so practicing their fighting skills for when mating season comes along. And you can see they're constantly looking up at us, looking around them, making sure that there's nothing sneaking up on them. There's also the sound of the rain, which might drown out the sound of a predator's foot falling. Of course, leopards are expert sneaky hunters, and there could be one anywhere around us. Adrian, you want to know if we're cold, or if the animals are probably feeling a little bit chilly. Luckily, they've got a nice fur coat to keep them warm. Are we cold? A little bit. I think that in South Africa we tend to be a little bit of a, well, I know I'm certainly a baby when it comes to the cold. I don't mind being too hot, but I don't particularly like being cold. I think the temperature's probably around, must be about 68, 69 degrees Fahrenheit. So not too cold, but it does get a little bit chilly after a while when you're soaking wet and the wind is blowing. Not too bad though, don't worry. I'm quite happy. Now let's look a little bit to the right of this impala. Just quickly, there we go, fluttering in that bush over there. And see that combination of birds? Those are very damp arrow-marked babblers. And they flew off. They were actually making their babbling sound. And the reason they're called babblers is because they babble. Whenever one of them starts, the rest of them carry on, and they make almost like a laughing sound. I don't know whether or not Brent would be able to play it for you in the tent, but an arrow-marked babbler makes a very, very specific sound. Right, it is drenched here, and we spoke about whether or not predators like the rain. Let's go over to Tristan to find out.
Well, Jamie, I think our cats look much like your arrow-marked babblers. They are completely drenched. And isn't it exciting that we managed to find them? It took us a little bit of time because they weren't where we left them this morning, or where Jamie left them this morning. They had moved a little bit further on, and they found themselves a little thicket to lie in and get out of the rain. But it seems like some of the cubs are just woken up. Let's see, there's one of them just getting up now and going across the room. Look at that big stretch. Now, I wonder if it's going to go and try and see if it can suckle. Some of the cubs are still drinking milk from their mom, and so they go and they sometimes will go and have a little suckle. But look at that. Isn't that sweet? It's a little bit of affection between the two of them. So the little cub has gone to go greet its mom, and just to reaffirm the bond between the two of them. You might find the mom will start grooming. There we go. You can see the long tongue coming out. And so the mom will lick the little cub, and there we go. It's going to go for a little drink of milk. First it's just going to groom all the water away, and then it probably will settle down right there. Isn't that cute? So, Asha, now that we're with the lions, you want to know what animals will hunt the waterbuck that we saw earlier. Well, you're looking at one of them. These lions often do hunt the waterbuck. They are very good at hunting, and they go after the waterbuck because the waterbuck is quite a big antelope. So it's a little bit bigger than something like an impala, which is our most common antelope here, and that will be enough to feed a lot of these lions, so that's why they'll hunt them. But you'll also find leopard will go after them, hyenas, wild dogs, and even cheetah. So all the predators that we see out here hunt waterbuck at varying stages. When they get to big adults like you saw just now, it becomes a little bit difficult for the wild dogs and the leopard because the waterbuck is a very strong, powerful animal. But the lions, because of their cooperative hunting, so they use one another to help in the hunting, they can overpower much bigger animals because 2 or 3 of them will latch on and they can then pull that animal down. So the lions use each other to be able to get bigger animals, and that then means that they can feed the whole family. Now you can see the little cub has just started to suckle there now. It's got itself nice and comfy, and it's now going to try and get milk. It's interesting because these cubs are getting to the age where they shouldn't be suckling too much longer. The moms are going to start stopping their milk production because the cubs are getting old enough to survive without it. These cubs do eat meat already, but they are reliant on a bit of milk as well. So, Aya, you're asking where the male lions are. Well, Aya, in this particular region that we're in, the male lions, they don't spend all their time with the females. What we find here is that we get female prides, and they then have male coalitions that come in and out and will come to protect the territory, but then they'll also come to mate and produce the cubs. And so the males that we have here, we have 4 males that walk around together that are with this pride at times, and they will only really be here if there's a nice food item, or if they're coming to mate, or if they hear the lionesses close by, then they come and investigate. But they don't spend all their time with the lionesses. They tend to want to go and patrol their territory and go and check and make sure other males haven't come in, as well as to go and see if there's any other signs of food, because there's a lot of competition here. So they would ultimately like to have no competition. They'll chase the females away and try and eat it. So the females don't spend too much time with the males if they can help it. It's only really if there's an intruder around, then sometimes the females will be close to the males, or if there's a big carcass and the males find them on it, then you find the males with them. Oh, look at that yawn. It's that kind of weather, I think. Dark, cold, wet weather. It makes everybody a little bit tired, I think. So that's why there's a lot of yawning going on. Oh, shaking a bit of water off. Isn't that cute? Now, these cubs are already quite old. They were born in about April, May. So they're getting quite big now. And there are 6 of them in total. So, you also want to know when the cubs will start hunting. Well, the cubs are still a little bit small for hunting. They're a little bit too inexperienced. And so at the moment, the moms leave the cubs behind and they go off hunting, and then they'll come and fetch the cubs if they get something to eat. And if they don't get something to eat, then they just come back to the cubs just to make sure they're fine. But these little cubs will probably, in all likelihood, start walking with the pride when they're hunting at about 1.5 to 2 years. And actually, they'll start to really be a value on the hunt and actually start physically killing things probably just after 2, going forward into 3 years. By the time they reach 3.5, they're pretty accomplished hunters, and they're able to do what they need to do and find food for themselves. So it's going to be still a while that they're reliant on their moms. Even though they are suckling, that milk production is going to finish soon, and then they're going to rely on their moms for meat for the next year or so. And in the beginning, you'll find that the moms are going to try and teach these young ones, so they'll make the little ones sit and watch, and the babies will watch how the moms move, and they learn the subtle little signs that the females have in order to communicate with each other when they're hunting, because obviously when they're hunting, they can't make noise because otherwise the prey animal sees them. So for the first few times, they'll just sit and watch, and then slowly but surely they'll start to help out. And in the beginning, they're going to make lots of mistakes, and they're going to alert prey animals to them, and they're going to miss a lot of times. But slowly but surely, as they watch the older females, they're going to start to learn exactly the techniques that they need, and then they'll start to get it right, and eventually they'll become a very tight-knit, cohesive unit. And if they're little females, then they're going to stay with their mothers normally for life. They'll end up being a part of the pride, and so they learn early, and then they become a very valuable asset to that pride. Now you can see that little one is grooming quite a bit, so it's probably trying to get rid of all the water that's on it, as well as all the little ticks that have crawled on it. Now, ticks are a little parasite that we get in this area that live in the grass, and when the animals come and lie down on the grass, then the ticks crawl onto them and then start to suck their blood for food. And so sometimes they've gotten some ticks from sleeping all day, because these lions would have been sleeping most of the day today, and so they're just getting rid of any of those that might be on there. Also, the Nkuhuma pride, which is the pride that we're seeing now, in the winter, when we had a very bad drought, they had a bit of an outbreak of mange. Now, mange is a little mite that also lives in their skin and causes them to itch a lot, and they actually scratch so much that they can lose their fur. And so it could also be grooming to get the last little bit of that out. You can see some of the cubs have a few little black patches on the shoulders there, and that's still scarring from where they've scratched themselves too much from that mite. But now that it's raining, the mite starts to go away. The mites don't like wet weather at all, which is really good for the lions. Well, we're going to sit with these lions for a little bit longer and see if maybe they're going to wake up and get going. And while we do that, I believe Brent has got a skull of a lion to show all of you.
Yes, indeed. I've got the spell of a nice big male lion here. As you can see, look at those teeth. Isn't that incredible? Now, a lot of people think that it's the teeth that kill. Now, of course, they can use their teeth to kill on smaller animals. They will bite with these big canine teeth into the brain of the smaller animals. But this very important gap over here is the most important thing. Now, that is a very, very, very... Oh, wait, I've got an idea, Brian. I've got an idea. We need a pipe. What can we use as a pipe? We can use my torch. So, now, I want you guys sitting there at school to go like this onto your throat. And you can feel there's a round thing there. You see that? There. And if you push on it, you can't breathe. So there we go. That's your esophagus or your windpipe. Now let us imagine that my torch is that of an impala. So what happens, or a buffalo or something like that. So what happens is the lion will use these bigger teeth to anchor into the neck. And then you see when it closes down, this gap actually pinches the pipe closed, and that's how they suffocate an animal. Isn't that amazing? So everyone thinks the lion will rip out meat with their teeth, which they will once the animal's dead. But most of the time when they kill an animal, they use this very special gap here to completely crush the windpipe of what they're eating. So Oh, I can't. Obviously, we need an actual soft pipe to. Actually, I'm going to get one for my next tech segment so we can actually show you how it works. But unfortunately, the torch is a bit hard. But this is a male lion. It's quite a nice big one. And he's probably, let's have a look at the wear on his teeth. He's not that old. Now, lions die a lot, and often quite young, due to the fact that it's really, really competitive out there, especially for the males. They're constantly fighting. But the fact, if I look at his canines, they're not in bad condition. They're not chipped. So I'd say he was probably killed quite young, maybe, and I would say under 6 years old when this guy died. Oh, put it back together. Oh, Aya, you've made me so excited. Aya wants to know, what other kind of skulls do we have in the tent? Well, Aya, let me put the lion over there. Ooh, where are we going to start? So many places to start. There. Let's take the piece of grass out. Now, this is a hyena. Now, I'm going to open it up so you can look at the teeth. So, still the big teeth, but you see, they're not as sharp as the lions, but they're wider. So, they're made for crushing bones. And a hyena has got such strong jaws, it can crush through most bones that not even a lion can crush through. Let me put it back together. So, for example, they can crush something like a giraffe leg bone. Now, of course, inside a giraffe's leg bone is a lot of bone marrow, and that's really, really good protein. And I don't know, some of you at home might like to eat bone marrow. I do, especially. It's very, very tasty, but it's very hard to get into. Now, there's my I've got lots of bones around here. Just hang on. Now, it's such good protein that our ancestors... Oh, let me just finish with this guy first. Now, you notice his nose is missing. Hyena, what happened to your nose? Well, I think what happened to Mr. Hyena's nose is something like that bit off his nose. So I think this hyena was possibly killed by lions. So that's what looks like, what's happened there. You can see how long the tooth is. So there's only a tiny bit of the tooth, so that's what would have been sticking out. And you can see how long the root is. And of course, they need that long, deep root to be able to crush bones. Now, other animals that like to crush bones, the only other animal that likes to crush bones as much as hyenas is human beings. And I have... Oh, let me just... There we go. For a left-handed person, I'm right-handed, unfortunately, but this is actually a fossilized tool. It's not fossilized. That is a complete lie. It is a Stone Age tool. So it's a piece of rock, schist by the looks of things, that has been cut into this by an early hominin. So not a Homo sapien, but early Stone Age, maybe Homo habilis. So actually, this is early to middle Stone Age. So early Stone Age would be so heavy I'm not going to be able to pick it up. Now, the reason we started using bones, started using tools, where is a bone? Where's a bone I'm allowed to break? I'm not getting into trouble from James. Let's go this way. Oh, there's just giraffe bones everywhere. No, there's one. Buffalo, we've got lots of buffalo bones around. Whoops. I don't think I broke anything. I thought it was stuck together. But now, let's imagine this is... So, Homo sapiens, which we are, have been in our current form. I won't make you come out. I'll stand over... Oh, you're okay. For about 200,000 years. So, when we're looking at Homo habilis, early to middle, probably closer to middle Stone Age because of the size of the tool. Oh, let me just try to remember my anthropology. Probably about 800,000, 600, 8,000 years ago. Now, we've managed to get hold of a buffalo, and we've dried a lot of the meat, we've eaten a lot of the meat, but we're still hungry. And we know there's got to be something in here. So, we get our stone tool, and it's amazing, in certain parts of Africa, I've found some incredible, I just keep forgetting this is a left-handed stone tool. It's going to be a bit difficult for me, but I'm probably not going to be able to. But And also, I'm not nearly as strong as a Homo habilis. But see, I would break open, and you can see I'm not going to break open the bone, but you can see if I started hitting a bit harder, it would go straight through the bone, and I'd be able to obtain that bone marrow. Now, another animal that likes bone marrow, but can't get to the big pieces of bone marrow in elephants, giraffe, like hyenas and human beings, is the lions. So let's go back to Tristan.
They do indeed, Brent. They love a bit of bone marrow, but unfortunately they do not have stone tools like you do to get into those big buffalo bones to be able to access all that marrow. I'm sure they would love to, though. Maybe you can hire out your services at a later stage. But we've just been watching them, and one or two of them have gotten up and moved a little bit. I think there's quite a bit of rain falling off these trees, so big drops, and it's just probably irritating them slightly, so they've all moved a little. And the one female has come out, and you can see the cub has gotten straight to her to go and suckle. Well, Joey, the number of lion cubs that a female can have is dependent. They can have anywhere from 1 to 8, but 8 would be very, very uncommon. Generally, we find in this area the average is normally around 4, but I have seen as many as 7 from a lioness before, so you can get those higher numbers. But generally, we see sort of 2 to 4 cubs, and that's the normal sort of amount of cubs that a female will give birth to, which you can imagine quite a handful. Imagine having 4 cubs all at once, and they all want to eat and they all want to play. It makes a lot of energy out of these females. They unfortunately spend a lot of time trying to discipline the little ones and make sure that they're not getting up to too much mischief. But right now they're all being very relaxed. Like I say, it's that typical bedwear. Then lions are one of those predators that really like to sleep. They're not the most active of animals. They like to spend most of their day sleeping, and then they move around a little bit at night. And I was talking to Jamie about this morning, and she was saying to me that these lions walked everywhere last night, so it's no wonder that they're quite tired. It seems like they covered quite a bit of distance, and I'm pretty sure that those vultures that we saw earlier is where they maybe had a kill last night, because their bellies are quite full. And this female in front, if you look, you can very faintly see a bit of a red color on her face, so there's still a bit of blood on her face. That would have been from where she fed off a carcass last night, so definitely had a bit of a meal. And I'm sure those vultures that we saw were sitting where these lions ate. Now, the thing is with those vultures, unfortunately for them, is that the rain did start, so even if the food is finished, they have to sit and wait until the rain goes away, because their wings are going to be too heavy for them to fly. And that's why we went and investigated there, and there was no sign of any carcass. But in all likelihood, the lions ate everything, as they often do. You can see she's getting sleepy, and that head's getting a little heavy. It keeps dropping down, and she just wakes up a little bit to look around. The rain is just starting to get a little bit heavier, so I wonder if she's not going to move into a bit more of shelter. You can see in the distance there that the horizon is becoming harder and harder to see with all the rain that is falling. So this weather system is coming from our southeast, and that's basically a southerly direction, and so that's why the rain is coming from there. See the other female now. I'm sure if it's too hard, we'll find that they're going to go back under the little tree that they were originally under and try and find some sort of way to shelter and get out of this wet weather. Now you see her ears are moving quite a bit. There's 2 reasons why her ears... Oh wait, look at that. Look at those teeth, aren't those incredible? Now you would have seen the skull with Brent, so you can see how big those teeth are, but look at the cub hanging on. The cub still wants milk. Is very unimpressed now that mom has walked away. Shame, little one. Are you thirsty? It's not going to deter. It's going to carry on following mom and try and find a place to suckle again. But Aya, you want to know why these lions are so lazy. Well, the reason why the lions are lazy is because when they are active and when they do move around and they chase animals to hunt, they use a lot of energy. it's like, let's say when you're walking, it's not too bad, but when you sprint and you try and run as fast as you can, you get very tired very quickly. And so the lions, when they try and catch prey, they have to run very, very fast, and they use a lot of energy. And so they try and rest during the day, so that when they actually do have to run, that they have their energy reserved and they're ready, and they can sprint after these prey animals with as much energy as possible. And so that's why they're quite lazy. But you'll find if we were sitting here and something like that waterbuck that we saw earlier came walking through here, these lions would wake up quite quickly. They wouldn't look nearly as lazy. They would become quite sort of focused on what they hear or see, and then they would try and go towards wherever that was, and you'd see them really start to probably actively hunt. Even though they're full-bellied and they ate last night, any opportunity they will take, and they will try and then hunt again. So even though they look very lazy, when the opportunity does come, they do get up very quickly, and they show quite a bit of energy when they do that. Now you can see the one female, she got up and moved because of the rain getting heavier, and a couple of the cubs have picked up their head as well. Now, I wonder where she's going to go. She's coming back now again. Let's see where she's going to lie. And she's going to go straight back to where she was earlier. Very clever girl. A bit of a shake, get rid of all the water that's all over her body. And where she's heading now, there is an adult female in there with 2 or 3 cubs, and they are so tightly bound together, it just looks like a heap of lions. I don't know if you can see in there, it's just all a tawny color, but there are probably 4 lions under that small little bush, and they're all trying to huddle together. And I'm sure they're getting warm from one another. You know, when it's cold, sometimes it's nice just to go close to somebody, and then their warmth helps to keep you warm. So it's why they're doing that. Let's see if she's going to sit down there. There we go. Now you can see on her shoulder she's got a little bit of an injury there. So I think they've been fighting a little bit with some of the other female prides that we get in this area. It's also why they may be a little bit jumpy. Jamie was saying this morning that they were moving quite quickly, so I wonder if they haven't been fighting with somebody. Well, that's all we've got time for, unfortunately, with our schools today. I hope you've enjoyed the afternoon with us. It's been a great pleasure having you here. And while we carry on with these lions, we're going to go back to Jamie.
I am not in the tent. I am fossicking. Come, don't fly away, little moth. Don't do it. Now the trick is to be able to pick. You got to try pick the branch that the moth's on without it flying away. But this moth is proving to be quite difficult. It's a very pretty, very small moth. Come here, little moth. Of course, we are back, and I'm fossicking for things to put under the microscope, as well as to show you, because there's always amazingly interesting things everywhere. Okay. Now, this moth is so tiny, I think the microscope's the only way to see it. Okay, let me approach it more stealthily. Oh. I don't want to trip. No, it's going to fly. We'll try and get a quick look at it. It's very pretty. I'm not sure which moth this is, so I want to have a look. Let's see if we can get it to the microscope very slowly. And of course I got some flowers, because I like flowers. Okay. So far, so good. Oh dear. Don't want to touch that. Don't. No!
Right at the finish line.
It was like Steph at the egg and spoon race. Well, okay. Well, I did manage to get some gouche, or Cocorus asplenifolia. So, nice, pretty little yellow. Very dark here. Moving on. very pretty yellow flowers. Now, they are edible. It's called Shangaan cabbage or gouche. But when it is prepped, basically, you just take it like this. You can use it. One of the few things out here in the bush that can be used as soap and food. So there we go. You see, it gets this very slimy consistency. Now, it's almost like snot. Now, when you eat it traditionally, it is served like snot, literally, but it's crushed like barrels of it together. I quite like it. Some people find it a bit bitter. But according to Herbie, you must never give it to the ladies unless you don't want any sleep. That's what Herbie tells me. Okay, on that naughty note, now that the school drive's over, I'm going to chew on my Shangaan cabbage and send you back to Jamie.
What on earth did Lou? What did you say Brent was chilling on? I couldn't quite hear that. Either way, we're going to sit and chill as well. Ah, the Shangaan cabbage, yes. Yes, Herbie has mentioned the same thing. Anyway, moving rapidly on from the Shangaan cabbage, we have got this lovely herd of elephants that I think I'm going to try and spend the rest of the afternoon with. So we can stop driving into the pouring rain. And they are wandering off slowly but surely towards Treehouse Dam. I would hesitate to say that they're going for a drink there, just because there's so many other places to stop and have a quick sip of water. And the one thing about this roof and elephant sightings, I can hear other elephants further behind me, but it does make life slightly more tricky when you're trying to follow them or sit with them, especially a herd of elephants. One bull is okay, but a herd of elephants, I'm aware that there's more off to my right, and there would be more behind me. I don't really want to find one has snuck up and then sort of pokes Craig gently in the bottom. That's not going to actually happen. It's definitely not going to happen. But it does mean that I've got to be slightly more careful about my peripheries, my non-existent peripheries. But let's stick with this elephant herd. It gives us a nice opportunity to move quite slowly and put our backs to the rain so that we don't get any... Well, I suppose we can't really be soaked any... Well, I can't be any more soaked than I already am. But let's not tempt fate. I already feel as though somehow we've earned this, because we mocked Steph so much with his deluge. I feel like this is karma coming back to bite us. We kept laughing at Steph. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry, Lou. I'm struggling a little bit with your comms this afternoon. I heard a question about whether or not we think that elephants can understand us as humans. Sarah. Now, Sarah, you want to know, do we think that elephants can understand us as humans? And of course, whenever I'm in an elephant sighting, I chatter away to the elephants. And it's not because necessarily I think that they can understand us at all. Hello, big girl. I see you. There you go. See, I do it automatically. And the answer is I don't think they can understand the words that we're saying at all. But bear in mind that animals essentially communicate in a couple of different ways. One is body language and the other is sound. And we are, and obviously the third is through scent. But we're communicating, or I'm trying to communicate to the elephants in terms of my tone, that we don't mean them any harm. And absolutely they can understand tone. They understand a calm and relaxed tone. And I've often found that elephants have calmed down, whether or not it's because I've been speaking to them, or perhaps it's just because I've behaved properly. I haven't done any sudden movements. I haven't started up the vehicle to scare them. But by the same token, I also know that elephants absolutely understand when you raise your tone. So when you turn around and you give them a severe talking to, warning them not to come any closer, but especially when they've decided to approach you, and you have to gently remind them that they made that choice and now they're in your personal space. They're intelligent enough that you can communicate that to them. And you can do that safely and securely, and in fact it's the safest way to go about things. So they don't understand the words that I'm saying to them. I'm sure you could train an elephant to obey certain commands, which obviously we are very much against. The whole idea of elephant-back riding safaris and treating them as though they are domestic animals, even if they are elephants that have, in inverted commas, been rescued. It's not something that is appropriate for the way in which we utilize these animals. I'm sure you could teach them to obey certain commands. Circuses have been doing it for hundreds of, or decades at least. Fortunately, it seems as though that's something that's stopping now. No longer treating elephants as circus animals. I can't think of anything more depressing than to watch an elephant in a circus. Hey, big girl. Look at her. She's stopping to have a jolly good rub. Oh, and she's off again. Lumbering slowly but surely to catch up with the rest of the herd. Just going to check behind me. Make sure nobody's come sneaking up. It's actually more that I don't want to be blocking anybody's way. And I think this is the same relatively large herd of elephants that have been hanging around this area since the Monday TV shows. In fact, I think it might even been since the Sunday before that. And they've spent lots and lots of time in this area, just crisscrossing into Little Gowrie and then back onto Djuma. And if I'm right about that, it's got a very distinctive female within this herd with a huge V missing from her ear. Massive triangle, actually, missing from her ear. And if I'm right, then it's around about 30 or so elephants. Isn't this lovely? Ellie's in the rain. I am going to stretch out sitting with these elephants for as long as possible. First of all, because it's raining. But second of all, because it's been a long time since I've actually properly spent time with elephants. And I'm hoping this lot don't go vanishing off into the vegetation. Because we definitely can't go wandering off-road here. Mouthfuls of grass. Having a marvellous time. Elephants have been busy over the last few days. I have driven round more elephant roadblocks than I have in a long time, and that actually makes me very happy, because that means that our elephant herds are back with us once again. It felt as though we had a sort of an almost elephant herd vacuum for a while. We saw the odd bull coming to eat marulas off quarantine, but we didn't really get to experience proper herd sightings, so it's nice to have them back with us once again. Don't forget, for our viewers that have just joined us, send through any questions that you would like to ask on hashtag safariLIVE on Twitter, or you can email through to questions@wildearth.tv. And we can find out all sorts of amazing things. Isn't this such a lovely image? Large and two mediums. Well, one slightly larger than... was one slightly smaller than the other. This is lovely. There were more elephants further ahead. I think it might be worth trying to catch up with these three. And lots of talking happening as well. I can just hear, and you won't be able to hear it at the moment, unfortunately, because with our roof on, all you're going to pick up is the drops of rain hitting the roof. But there's been lots of rumbling sounds emanating from all around us. So there are lots around. Let's check that I'm not starting up the vehicle with an elephant right next to us. It won't be very appreciative if we do that. Isn't it wonderful to see all this rain? Even if it does mean that we're damp and soggy. I haven't been properly dry since the TV show on Monday. It'd be nice to see how full the dams are by the end of it, and it looks as though there's more on its way. Where I should not be making any weather predictions ever. Hey guys. And it also smells amazing. It doesn't actually, to be honest, it doesn't have the smell of petrichor anymore. It doesn't smell like Africa after a short, sharp thunderstorm. It smells like damp. Look at this. She's scratching on the other elephant. Look at her. The two of them scratching on each other. One's getting the nice patch behind the ear, the other one scratching her bottom. Now, Tanya, you want to know if they use the stars to navigate at night, because I did mention that they move around in the evenings. Tanya, I don't think so. I'm not quite sure exactly what it is that guides elephants, and they are, of course, famous for their abilities to navigate across enormous distances. My guess would be magnetic fields, the Earth's magnetic fields. I suspect that they have a way of feeling those. I don't think that they glance up and look at the stars and guide themselves from there. Of course, there's been a lot of research done into the way in which dung beetles navigate and the way in which they use... Oh, that looks so nice. Trunk full of dirt across her back. Dung beetles using the moon in order to navigate, but I doubt that elephants use the stars. Look, you never know, but I really, really doubt that they look up, especially because otherwise they'd get very lost and confused on cloudy days, which they don't ever seem to do. The other question is, how much purpose is there to where they go and where they choose to wander? Look at this. Resting one hip, scratching the back of its ankle. Hey, little boy. This is such a nice dirt spot. Obviously, a lot of their movement is dictated by resources, where there's water, where there's food, where's going to be the best place for the matriarch to lead them. But it'd be interesting to know what her decision-making process is on days like today, or at times like this season, when there's so much available food. Nice soft grasses. She is having so much fun with this dirt. Look at that. Piling it on top of her head, wiping it away from her eyes and her ears. Getting to all those itchy spots. And the perfect skin exfoliator if you're an elephant. We should bottle it and sell it. If it's good enough for elephants, it should be good enough for us. There you go. Making sure she chucks enough sand between her legs, back and front, which is of course where the most sensitive skin is. And this little one, copying Mum, but with a slightly less style. Not quite really getting the whole thing exactly spot on. Here we go. Cute. Digging backwards and forwards. And then grabbing as much sand as it possibly can. And of course, elephants have to learn to use their trunks like toddlers have to learn to use their hands to write and to grasp things, and all those things that we do with our hands that we don't even think about anymore. And it's exactly the same for baby elephants. That has to become muscle memory, but it doesn't immediately. So things like this take a little bit longer if you're a small baby elephant. Hey, tusks just sticking out, so over 2 years old probably. They're just starting to grow. Oh, wait for me, Mum. I haven't finished my dust bath yet. Oof. Of course, elephants are truly special animals with very, very strong bonds between the various members of the herd. But Sage, no, absolutely not. Elephants do not mate for life at all. Any reproduction is pretty much a once-off encounter, and in fact, chances are that female may not mate with that male ever again in her life. She might not even see it ever again in her life. Bull elephants wander around, they cover enormous distances, and it's generally when they come into must that they are ready to mate. That is when they're at their most aggressive. The females tend to prefer them. Just there's something about the fact that their testosterone levels shoot up 60 times more than normal. So no mating for life, and in fact a very brief mating period full stop, since the female actually has to bear the weight of the male on her hips for a short period of time. It cannot be extended any longer than the few necessary seconds. I'm going to catch up with our elephants and spend as much time as possible with them, but for now, let's jump back into Brent in the tent.
Oh, yes, I'm in the tent surrounded by death. But yes, elephants mating is a very interesting thing. It's probably one of the most dangerous times to encounter elephant on foot. And I had quite a scary experience some years back. One of the very few times I've ever actually loaded a rifle while in the African bush. and I was tracking lions in the Sand River about 15 kilometers away from here with the late, great Simon Matabula, a tracker I learned a lot from over the years we worked together. And we were tracking these lions, and we came over these sandbanks, and there was mating elephants, probably far away, 100 meters away, and they just turned around, ears went flat, heads down, and they just came straight at us, both the bull and the cow. And we thought if we just got over one of those little banks, it would all be okay. And Mr. Matabula, a fantastic bushman, incredible tracker, about 110 kilograms. When we do that into pounds, about 250 pounds worth of Shangan. And I scuttled down the little bank, and as I sort of started going up the little bank, I heard Simon fall. And it wasn't far, it was about from where Brian is from me now. So I turned around, and while Simon was getting up, the elephants came up and were above him looking down. So I actually loaded the rifle and ran forward and stood over him shouting, and I managed to shout down the elephants, fortunately. So you always got to be careful with mating elephants. Now, I just want to grab something. We had such lovely questions, I noticed, during the school drive on Twitter about the wonderful little caterpillars, so I thought we should have another quick look. Okay, let's see if we can do this. Oh, no ways. Score! One shot in there. Eat your heart out, Henry. There we go. Okay, so we had a couple of really great questions about the caterpillars, and Yoro had the first one in, and Yoro was wondering, can anything safely eat those caterpillars? Now, there will be a few species of bird, and that is what causes them to feed on the other underside of the leaves, where they are a bit protected. So there will be species of bird. You'll see things like hornbills. Hornbills are able to digest hydrogen cyanide. Quite a few bird species are able to break their pancreas releases an enzyme that is able to safely break up hydrogen cyanide. The only mammal, actually there's two mammals here that can probably break that down quite well. It's the civet, because they eat millipedes, which have a much higher dose of hydrogen cyanide than an accurate caterpillar. And the other, which is a very unusual one, is the grey duiker, which also eat millipedes in certain parts of Africa. Now, that's actually fascinating, whether the grey duiker here, who we don't really see eating millipedes as opposed to the grey duiker that occur in the forested areas, will have their pancreas will release different enzymes. I'm sure there's some scientist who is going to be doing some research on grey duiker pancreatic enzymes. Wouldn't that be fascinating? Now, this is Shannon and Mike's questions are actually sort of lumped together, and it's how long does the larval phase last? And Mike is, what age do butterflies get their wings? Now, as I said, it all depends. So in North America, you will find it is much, much shorter than out here. And the tropical butterflies, their larval phase of certain butterfly species can last up to 2 years. Butterflies and moths, for that fact, can last up to 2 years. Generally, you'll probably find them in the larval phase for 6 to 8 weeks. With acrias, it can be as long as 16 weeks. A lot of it also depends on the quality of food that is around, and whether it's been a rainy year or a not so rainy year, and the quality of food that's around. But in tropical Africa, it can be up to 2 years, but generally 6 to 8 weeks that they're in this larval phase. So that answers both, I suppose. For this species, it's 6 to 16 weeks. But as I said, up to 2 years. Isn't that incredible? Imagine being a little caterpillar sausage for 2 years. Well, I suppose if you've got lots of leaves to munch on. Whoa, what gave you a fright? No one came near you. Now, you can definitely see where all the aliens movies and whatnot get their inspiration from. It's definitely from the insect world. Oh, so scary. But very, very cool. Now, let's move away from the microscope and put them back on the bushes guarded by Tom Brady. I have been quite tempted in the last little while. Now, as you know, some of you will know, I know you guys, a lot of you American football fans, but out here in Africa, we play a game where we play just as much contact with no pads, no helmets, none of that silly stuff. And I was quite tempted to sort of just tackle Tom Brady, show the football people how it's done. But I'm scared he might bite me with those teeth he's got, or I might break James's baboon skull. So I think I'm going to bring up the courage to tackle Tom Brady. While I do that, let's go back to Tristan and those incredible Inkahumas.
I think Brent is just scared of Tom Brady, although I must agree with him, rugby is far better than American football in South Africa.
But
we
very big difference.
Big rugby supporters.
I'm running.
Brent is going to blame that he's got a dodgy hip and a limpy leg at the moment, so just excuses coming from Brent at this stage. But as you can see, lions are still fairly static. They haven't moved too much. They've gone up and down a little bit, and the cubs have moved out a little bit. The rain has settled slightly, and so I think they've all come out just to get a bit of a break from being out under the trees themselves. And there's a lot of grooming going on and a lot of growling and hissing at one another as they get too close to each other. But I think all is settled down now. And they're so cute, these guys. It's so nice to be able to spend lots of time with them again. They were absent for a few weeks, and they've been quite regular in the last week, so it's really good to have them back and see them a lot again. Look at that, isn't that the sweetest thing? It's like a little lion pile. So when it's wet and cold, the best thing is to go and curl up next to mom, place your head on mom and use her as a pillow, and let one of your siblings groom you. I think that's the ultimate life at this stage, although we're now woken up again. They are so cute, these little ones, and it's so good to see that they're recovering from this mange that they had. You can see there's still a few scars here and there, but it really is a lot better than what they were looking like a few months ago. So really good to see, and I'm hoping with all the rain that we're having now that this will be the last little bit of mange that they get, and they'll be able to recover from this and grow into big, strong lions. You can see that one is grooming quite a bit, and you might find what's happening is that the mom is not actually producing much milk, and that's why she's grooming around the nipple area to try and stimulate some sort of milk to come out so that it can suckle. It was suckling a little bit earlier, so it could be the reason why it's grooming again. As I was saying earlier, that these lions now are getting a little bit old to be suckling all the time, and so the flow of milk will be slowing right down. So sometimes they just lick a little bit around there to try and stimulate the female to release more milk. But these lions, a little bit earlier when we first arrived, it was raining quite hard at that stage, and you can see the little cubs are watching some of the commercial vehicles. For those of you that are new viewers, we do have commercial vehicles that run lodges around here, and they have guests that they bring into the sightings. So some of the commercial vehicles have arrived, and you can see the cubs are particularly interested in all of this. They're wondering what's going on and looking over their shoulders to see what this new big hunking great metal beast is, and they don't seem too perturbed at all. Alright, so we're going to stick with them for a little bit longer and see if the cubs start to wake up and start playing. They often do in this cold, dreary weather. And talking of playing, let's go to Jamie, who I believe has got some elephants that are in a very festive mood.
I have got such a special surprise for you. Not only are our elephants in a festive mood, but you see that little one at the back? Guess which little one that is. It's not Benjamin Button, unfortunately, but it's an equally special little elephant, because I'm surprised to tell you that this is Fang's herd. Look at these three having the best time in the mud wallow. Sorry, we'll get back to why Fang is such a special elephant in a moment. These three are having the time of their life. Each elephant has come through and flopped themselves down in this mud wallow. It is such an incredible sighting. Unfortunately, this is as close as we can get. But that little one at the back over there is the little male calf that we saw when it was just a few hours old, all that time ago. And if you haven't seen that particular clip, I would strongly suggest going off in search of it. It was largely thanks to Brent, actually, who found the placenta. So the female had just given birth, and all of a sudden out of the bushes came this tiny little elephant stumbling out and then falling down the drainage line next to it. And it was an absolutely gorgeous sighting, watching the protectiveness of the whole herd around them. And I haven't seen this baby elephant since. So this is such a lovely moment. Let's watch our elephants playing in the mud, though, because they are having such a ball that it's hard to know where exactly to look. I'm so excited to catch up with this little male once again. What a lovely surprise. And I'll show you Fang, hopefully, if she decides to come back out again. Hey, look at that. Look at that. One's also got a backwards-facing tusk. That's not Fang. I saw Fang earlier. But it seems as though... Okay, no, it's not quite backwards-facing, sorry. The light was playing games with my monitor. It's not quite backwards-facing. The reason Fang is called Fang is because her tusk faces backwards. And you'll see what I mean in a bit when she pops out again. Look at them. Of course, they are absolutely loving the water and the rain. And no, the answer is no, their skin does not get waterlogged at all. Their skin is as waterproof as ours is. So although they might feel a little bit more wrinkly and pruny in the same way you do if you sit in a bath for a long time, or we do when we sit in this rain for a long time. That was Kim. Kim, no, their skin doesn't become waterlogged. They don't become soggy, and they don't have to wring out their trunks after a long afternoon of rain, which would be quite hilarious to watch them wringing out their trunks and their ears, water dripping from it. Oh, time to get up, but it's slippery. It's slippery. There we go. And absolutely, Reese, increased moisture around their ears is, look at this little one, is definitely going to help them to dissipate heat even more. What are you doing? Are you in such high spirits? Yes, yes. Crawling all over the place, throwing itself in mud, having an absolute whale of a time. Yes, any increased water, I mean, it's like sweating. We sweat and that will help to cool us down, just because there's increased evaporation across our skin, and that in turn helps to cool us. Oh, scuffle. Scuffles. You see, this is why I love elephants in the rain. They are so full of fun and games. You better be careful though, you two. If you're pushing up against each other, you might scare the calf and then Mom's going to come a-running. Let's just go a little bit to the left there. This baby is now head first into mud. Other one's gone to sleep, fast asleep, resting the bulk of its weight in the mud. It probably feels slightly more comfortable. Not fast asleep, I'm sorry. Just lying down. The little one is trying to walk through this thick mud. Whee! Oh, this is all so new and confusing. This baby elephant has probably never experienced the ground as waterlogged as it is now. It's so special. Well, more slipping and sliding. The one on the left is truly relaxed. That is a proper elephant at the spa kind of a situation happening right there. Mud treatment, nice and cool, not having to contend with the heat. Huh. Baby's up again. This is so cool. Here we go. Little one going back off in search of Mum. Definitely our little bull. I recognized its mother from earlier. Whoa! And flopping back down into the mud. I'm hoping they're not going to disappear after this into the thick vegetation. I'm hoping they might stick around. Oh, somebody's now having a jolly good scratch. Once you've covered yourself in mud, go off in search of a good marula and give it a jolly good rub. Katie, you want to know if it is true that elephants cannot lie down for too long because of the pressure on their lungs and their heart. They cannot lie down longer than you would expect them to be able to. But yes, it is true. And I've been on a few elephant dartings where time has been absolutely of the essence to reposition that elephant and to get it to where it needs to be as quickly as possible, in the most effective manner as possible. So yes, their pressure can actually start to damage them. It can actually start to hurt them, but they can lie down. I've seen elephants lie down for much longer than you would expect them to be able to, and I've seen them lying down up to 45 minutes, probably even an hour. So it's not too much, but then of course they can shift around and reposition. Whereas if an elephant is anesthetized, obviously they can't change position, they can't shift their organs around, and that's when it becomes slightly more dangerous. And the same applies for the other large animals like rhino, for example. If you're transporting rhino, they have to be awake but sedated so that they are on their feet rather than lying down. More scuffles after a jolly good scratch. And this weather seems to be bringing out all kinds of interesting behavior in these elephants. And we always talk about how elephants can lie down fully, and this one on the left is giving us such a good demonstration of that behavior. Flop. Flat on its side. I'm just going to have a nap right here. Seems like the perfect spot. There we go, these two tussling with each other. We always talk about this being great big cat weather, but it's actually fantastic elephant weather. See? Good example of how we talk about the fact that you can't age an elephant necessarily by its tusks. These two are pretty much exactly the same size, but one's tusks are much, much longer and much thicker than the other's. Oof! Big head shake. And these skills that they're practicing now will one day be essential when it comes time to fighting for a mate. Or stopping to throw mud over itself. A bit of practice on your cousin is not a bad way to prepare oneself for adulthood. Right. These two seem to have settled for the moment. I'm going to see if I can catch up with Fang. While I do that, let's jump back on with Tristan and his lions.
So, unfortunately, our lion cubs are nowhere near as boisterous or playful as what Jamie's elephants are. I was hoping that they would start playing a little bit, but instead they've settled down to a little meal from Mom, and it's all very, very sedate here at the moment. You can see the lionesses have all settled down as well, and they are all out cold. I was hoping that they would wake up a little bit earlier when there was a bit of yawning and grooming. I was hoping that we were going to get them up and moving and potentially looking around. Last night I know Yanni was with them and she had them contact calling, so I was hoping that we'd start hearing a bit of contact calling and that they would continue the search for the two remaining females that are not with them at the moment. Now you can see that this female is not excessively full, so whatever they killed last night couldn't have been too big. It must have been something that was just enough to fill the bellies a little bit and keep the cubs nice and full. So I'd imagine it would be something small-ish, maybe a big male impala or a young kudu waterbuck, one of those that was distributed between them. Also, I suppose with this cooler weather, they're going to be utilizing a lot of energy, so that's why they've digested a little bit more than would have had it been a hot sunny day. See that they're all kind of tucked around that wattle. The wattle is a good tree for lions to go and sleep under. It's got nice big structures that overlap one another, and so actually underneath there will be quite dry. So you can see there, that's what it looks like. And so all of those leaves will be protecting these lines. The only problem is every now and then they're going to get one of those big water droplets landing on them, but I suppose that's better than a constant drizzle all over your head. So, DB Cooper, you want to know what Inkuhuma means. Now, I know it's a tree, I just can't remember which one. VM, can you remember which tree it is?
Brown ivory.
It's a brown ivory, that's right, now I can remember it. So, it's a brown ivory tree, and I honestly have no idea where the name has come from. It's probably due to a place that they've were seen very regularly, maybe a name of a road or a pan that they were often around. That's maybe where the name has come from, but I don't know, maybe Brent can give us a little bit more information about that. I know Brent often has info about these things, so maybe he knows and we can ask him in the tent just now. But I am not 100% sure why they were named that. I just know that it is a tree and it's the local language for a brown ivory tree. You can see the little cubs, they are looking around at the vehicles and they seem to be a lot more wary than what they were a few months ago. I wonder if maybe they haven't, with these altercations that they've possibly had with other lions, given all the scars that are on the females, that they're a little bit more wary of movement around them. Ultimately, in their first few years of life, they didn't have too many worries because they spent most of their time in a very small area. The Birminghams were with them almost daily, and so they had very little to worry about. But now the females are sporting a few scars. I wonder if they haven't battled a bit with some other lions, and that's why the cubs are a little bit more skittish. Well, we're going to carry on watching these sleepy lions, but Brent, I believe, is out of his tent and has managed to find something large.
So, even a lot of you wonder if any animals come to the tent, and he's busy shaking his head at a car over there. He hasn't really seen us. Hello, big boy. So there's a lot of noise. I just saw Graham walk past. He hasn't spotted us yet. He might be able to hear us. But it's a young bull, so don't worry. If he gets out of hand, I'll teach him a lesson. So I'm really hoping he's going to feed towards us. So we're going to get into position, so as if we were on bushwalk, where he could come right towards us. And isn't this exciting? See, guys, I don't even need to go out of the tent to find a big 5 animal. You know, he's just gone behind this thicket here. Remember, hashtag safariLIVE or questions@wildearth.tv. You can hear him feeding. So he is coming closer. So what we're going to do is we're going to move closer to the tent. So if he does come closer, we can hide in the tent and hopefully he comes to visit us. Oh, let me cable bash for you there, Brian. Okay. Here we go. So I think he can hear us. And the nice thing about these young elephant bulls, I'm failing at my cable bashing. The nice thing about these young elephant bulls is if they can hear something, they're sometimes quite curious. So he's only about 50 meters. Look, he's going to come out right here. Hello, little man. Now, I'm talking on purpose so he can hear me. I don't want him to suddenly get a fright. So you can see his ears are open. I'm watching his body language. Can't smell. He doesn't smell like he's in must and the wind is coming to us. But, so, especially with single elephant bulls, it's very important, I find, in a lot of cases, to actually let animals know you're here. So sneaking up on them, if the wind's in your favor and stuff, it's great. Now, the wind is in our favor, but of course we're sedimentary here. We can't run around and move out of his way. So I'd much rather him know that I'm here. I'm talking in a nice, even tone, and you can see he's completely relaxed with us. And what is that, 40 meters, Brian?
Yeah.
So hello, big boy. Now, I just want him to know that we're here. Now, what might happen is once he's finished feeding there, he might still be a bit more curious. So he might actually come up to investigate me a bit further. And the most important thing is, of course, here we can't run away. We can't go anywhere. So it would be to stand my ground. He might lift his ears at us, but don't worry. I'm good at dealing with teenagers. Well, he's probably about 20. Hey, mister. But at the moment, he's completely aware we're here. I'm not standing out. I'm standing right in the open. I'm not trying to hide. I want him to know we're here. I don't want him to get a fright or a surprise at close range. And as you can see, he's decided that it's all very chilled and he's going to keep on eating. Now, it has to be one of my favorite things in the world is elephants on foot, and particular elephant bulls. You can get a lot closer to them. They're a lot more relaxed, and they're a lot less aggressive than elephant cows. Of course, they don't have babies and whatnot to defend. Hey, mister. Now, this looks like it could be the same elephant Jamie started out with at the beginning of the safari, that single young bull. And this morning, they said an elephant was coming. It never got here, but this one just arrived out of nowhere. So again, we're looking very carefully at his behavior. So Diana says maybe he smells the rulers in the tent. Well, Diana, there's a lot more marulas out there that he'll be able to smell. Look, now he's coming right out into the open. Hey, you. Now, he might lift his head and shake his head at us. But again, if this was a breeding herd or even a single cow, I would have really moved Brian and myself back into the tent and would have maybe shouted just to let her know that I'm serious. But with an elephant bull, I mean, look at this. He's now even closer, 30 meters. Oh, they're so special. So, as I was saying, we're looking at his body language now, and I know some of you don't believe that you can. Yes, Brian's just going to clean. There's a little bit of rain around. Some of you don't believe that you can talk an elephant down or shout an elephant down. Now, what you're dealing with is behavior that they're not used to. So an elephant's used to being the biggest, baddest thing in the bush. So if it runs at anything, it's used to it running away. So by immediately standing your ground, displaying different behavior, something that animal is not used to, and if it's not used to it, it generally will back out. It's not sure. Now, for example, I've seen elephants run away from Steenbok. It was a rabid Steenbok, so they might have been able to pick up on the rabies, but the fact that Steenbok was trying to chase and bite a 7-ton elephant bull, he got out of there. I think it's a bit of both. I think that different behavior was immediately picked up. Oh, look, it looks like he's coming closer. So again, I'm watching his body language. I'm just going to make sure I'm between Brian and the elephant. Hello, mister. No. See, he's lifting his head a little bit. He's letting us know he's here. He's letting us know he's big. He's no. Don't be naughty. There we go. So now he looked like he might give us a little bit, Stop it. Yes, I don't want to fight with you, but you're more than welcome to feed next to us. Yes, now you look sheepish. Go feed on the tree. So now immediately his tail sticks out a little bit. But there we go. A lot of you are wondering how to deal with an elephant. There we go. Very, very easily done. Now, of course, every situation is different. And please do not try this unless you have lots of experience. Now, my first elephant encounter on foot was my first memory at 2 years. Obviously, I didn't know what I was doing, and I got a hiding from my father afterwards. But since then, I've spent thousands of hours with elephants on foot, all over Africa, in rainforests, in in rainforests, in savannas, in semi-deserts, and rivers, on boats, on foot, on cars. So here we go. I just want him to relax a bit. I think he will come back. He's just now fed there. We just didn't want him to get a little bit cheeky. So in a lot of cases, and I'm could get myself in trouble here. So it's very easy to have a very exciting elephant encounter on foot. So I could have let that situation go till he was in 5 meters of me before I clapped. And the amount of danger and everything would have been exactly the same. But of course, it's when you take those silly chances and you lose the respect for those animals that bad things happen. So in this circumstance, I'd rather 15, 20 meters, great. But if he'd walked in feeding, I wouldn't have done anything. But the fact he was like, okay, I'm big, I'm tough, stop it before it becomes a potentially dangerous situation is the trick. Now, as of course, on bushwalk, we probably would have moved out of that situation before we had to do that. But because we're in the tent, he was always going to come here. He was always curious from the sound. So I'd rather face him when I'm outside and have some space and stuff, and he has some space to deal with, rather than trying to chase him from inside a tent where I've got blocked sight and whatnot. Let's just have a quick look. Now, he has stopped right here. We just can't see him. So he's stopped. He's still about 30 meters. You can just see the trees moving where he's feeding. You can see his tail. There we go. So he's no further than he was. You see him? Just see his tail there. Now, he still might come closer to him, but we've both now established we've established between him and I what my personal distance is, and he probably isn't going to come within that close sort of 15-20 meter range again, and he'll stay around our peripheries. But wasn't that exciting? But let's go back to Tristan and those wet and sopping and totally miserable looking Tristan and Ngulmas.
Thanks very much, Brent. I'm glad you think that I look miserable. It's very, very kind of you. I'm not so sure I agree so much, but it's very pleasant actually being out here. Liam and I have found ourselves a perfect spot, and that's why we're sitting with the lions. Is we're not getting rained on too much. We're in the cover of a nice grove of trees, as you can see around us, and so it's very pleasant here. We're quite dry, and there's not too much rain coming into the vehicle, so quite nice. The lions, on the other hand, are having a thoroughly miserable time of it. They're sitting in the middle of the rain, so not nearly as comfortable for them as it is for us. But what they have done is very little. In the last few minutes, we've had not too much movement at all. In fact, everybody's been fast asleep. This is the most movement we've had since you were last with us. I believe Brent was having a good time with the elephant as well. So hopefully our lions are going to start being like the elephants today, with Jamie having quite active elephants and Brent having active elephant. It would be nice if our lions decided to be a little bit more active too and started to get up and move a little bit. Now, Brent was being very boastful and saying that he's so good he doesn't even need to leave the tent to find a member of the Big Five. Well, Brent, Jamie found elephants and I found lions, so we beat you to the punch. So the only way you're going to redeem yourself is if you actually find us a leopard, and I don't think that that's going to happen, so we'll see though. But there's the challenge. See if you can find us a leopard from the tent, then I will bow to your ever so delightful ego that you have going at the moment. Now, this little cub, I think, can't get any cleaner than it is already. It's cleaned itself thoroughly this afternoon. It's been spending the whole afternoon just licking itself. And I wonder if it's just the rain, the novelty of being wet, and then getting rid of all that drops of water that are falling on it. And ultimately, I suppose every few minutes they're getting wet. So even though they've groomed a lot of water off, there's still some that's going to be collecting on their fur. Now, so Katie, you're wondering, do lions on their own or lion coalitions hunt by themselves? Well, yes, they do. So the Birmingham males, which is the male coalition that we see in this area, are very effective hunters by themselves. In fact, I saw when there were still 5 of them about a year and a half ago. Sorry, Lou was saying if it's just a lion by itself with no pride or coalition, will they still hunt? Yes, they will. I have seen lone lionesses bring down impalas before. I've seen them bring down bushbuck and wildebeest, even zebra. So they do hunt by themselves. I've seen male lions by themselves bringing down quite large animals like buffalo. So they do. If the opportunity is there and they can see that they can get something, they will take it. So it does sometimes happen without prides or without coalition members. But it's obviously a lot easier if you've got a coalition member or a pride member helping you, especially now in the summer months when the animals become a lot stronger with all the food that's around. Most of the prey animals have become much healthier and stronger and fitter, and so for the lions it becomes a little bit harder to bring them down. In the winter months when they get a little bit weaker, then you find that those lone animals are able to bring down prey animals very, very easy. So at the moment, though, it will be a very hard process. And we saw that with the other 2 Nkulma females. Brent had them last week, and they were looking very skinny, and they tried to hunt all kinds of things. I know he said to me that they were hunting nyala and impala and a warthog, and they were trying, and they were having not too much luck. I reckon if it had been all 5 females together, it might have been a different story, and they might have been a little bit more successful. Now we know that these 3 girls with the cubs, they've got a little bit more motivation in that they've got to feed the cubs as well. So they've done quite well. We know they had a waterbuck last week, and then last night they obviously killed something. We don't know what, but they definitely got something that was fairly decent, that every single one of them has a slight bulge on the belly. So they've done a lot better than their 2 pride members. So, Mike, you're wondering how long a lion can live. Well, it's obviously dependent between male and female. Is slightly different for a female or a male lion. Female lions, because they don't need to protect territory nearly as much as what the males do, and they don't patrol around as much and come into contact with other males nearly as much, they tend to live slightly longer. So in this area that we are currently, the females will live anywhere between 15 and 18 years. An 18-year-old lioness would be a very old lioness, but it does happen. And the males are a little bit shorter lived. They're only going to be probably anywhere between 10 and 15 years. Most of them will get to about 12, 13, and then unfortunately younger, stronger males come and overthrow them out of their territories and then take over, and those older males become nomadic and end up either bumping into males in different territories or being killed trying to defend the territory that they're in. But it is dependent. If you find animals that are domesticated, well, not domesticated, but looked after in zoos and things like that, lions can go over 20, so they can get a little bit older, but in the wild, a lot shorter lived, just due to all the competition that goes on. But I don't think there's going to be too much activity from them at this stage. I'm sure they're waiting for it to get a little bit darker and waiting for it to get very, very, very bleak out here, and then they'll start to move around a little bit later. Miguel, you wanting to know what will happen to the male cubs when they get older and they become sexually mature? Well, Miguel, unfortunately for them, it's time to then leave the pride and become a nomadic male until they can find a territory of their own. So what happens is these males, normally around 3.5 years, sometimes around 4, if they're lucky, they'll then get pushed out by the dominant males in that area, and they'll then become nomadic, and they'll have to move around until they can find an area that they can dominate themselves, and that's either going to be by taking over from another male or by finding an area that no males are currently in. So it's normally about 3.5 to 4 years old that they get pushed out. So sometimes depends on what's going on with the dynamics within the area that they're in. So let's say these males that are part of the pride get to 2.5 years and a new coalition of males comes in and overthrows the Birminghams, you might find that they'll break off a little bit earlier, and they'll then go and do their own thing for a little bit longer period of time than they would have had the males stayed around the Birminghams. That's the nice thing about wildlife, is there's never any set rule. You'll find that these animals adjust according to what's going on around them. So there is sort of time frames that we can utilize as an average, but it's not always hard and fast rules that can be set in stone, and we can say that definitely this cub will leave at that stage, or these males will come in at that stage. So it's a really nice thing to have when it comes to wildlife. Alright, so we're going to still sit with the lions for a little bit longer. I just want to see if maybe the females are going to start waking up, and while we do that, let's go back to Jamie, who I believe is still with her elephants.
Oh, Craig and myself have been enjoying an absolutely magical time with these Ellies, and what a special way to spend an afternoon, a cold and rainy and uncomfortable afternoon. I've just found Fang, but you're going to have to wait in order to see her. She's here, but I don't want to put us in an awkward position. She's just off to my left. This roof is ever so slightly in my way. So many Ellies all around me and all hidden behind large bushes. I can't wait to show you Fang. She's such an extraordinary looking elephant. The little one's just up ahead. I can't believe how big he's got. I'm pretty sure it's him. I just have to try and show you again. No, elephants, I was hoping you were going to quarantine. Don't go that way. That way. Go that way. Nice and out and in the open, where I can see you properly. Now, this is an important situation to remember, that an elephant herd that has always been very calm with us shouldn't be taken for granted. So as lovely and relaxed as they are, and they have been in the past, I'm never going to assume that just because it's Fang's herd that they're automatically going to be relaxed on this particular day. Now, we always treat each and every single wild animal sighting as a unique situation, watching their body language, watching the way that they're behaving, making sure that they are not in any way uncomfortable with us in their midst. That's not the little one, I don't think. It doesn't look like him. That looks too big. Surely that is too big to be that same little brand new Ellie. What you doing? What are you doing? Now, Tanis, you want to know how long elephant babies will suckle for? I mean, elephant baby is a massive investment for a female elephant. She bears it for 22 months. It suckles for another over 2 years. Up until about 3 or so years old even. Sometimes even recorded cases of even longer, that the female elephant will suckle her little one. And until she gives birth to, or she comes into estrus and she becomes pregnant with her next calf. And the weaning process of elephants is hysterical to watch. The babies do not like it. And they make a fuss and they scream and they just in general make sure that everybody knows that they're thoroughly unimpressed. You know what? I think it might be him. It's amazing if it is. The speed with which he's grown. I can't even remember when that elephant sighting was now, but I do know that his mum was a particularly large female with quite large tusks. Hey, what you got? What you got? Is it nice? Or is it not so nice? Oh! Not so nice. Ugh. Is that full of sand now and dirt? I can't even see what you're chewing. You know, you shouldn't put everything in your mouth that you find, little one. Some things are not so nice. So sweet. I just adore watching the way that it's using its trunk. Now, are you digging? Are you digging right down? But you don't have any tusks yet, so how are you going to dig? What is down there that your mom's dug up that you're after? Right down on its wrists. There's something so rounded about a baby elephant. And the adult females have these angular foreheads and they're sort of got angles to their bones, but little baby elephants are just such perfect creatures. What are you doing? Now, Michelle, you want to know, while this little one goes about getting some lunch. Oh, we're done now. Michelle, you want to know how much an elephant will eat per day? It depends on whether we're talking a female or a male. A big bull elephant could easily eat up to 600 pounds in one day, believe it or not. Just constantly feeding, constantly eating. And he'll end up defecating out about half of that, between a third and about a half of that during the course of the day. So they do eat an enormous amount. Obviously the females will be much less, they don't weigh as much, and you're probably looking at around about 400 or so pounds per day. The little babies, much less, especially a little one like this one that's still reliant upon mum's milk to supplement its diet. I don't know what it's doing. I want to go and see. I just want to make sure that there's nobody that snuck up behind me that might take offense to my turning on the vehicle. Hello? Fang, where are you? You were somewhere behind me. Very disconcerting feeling driving around in a tent. Elephants are smart enough to not overeat in an area? That is a really, really good question. And the answer is yes. In terms of biological, the evolutionary background, The vegetation and the elephants have evolved together. They have way.
So welcome back everybody. As you can see, still very sleepy, wet kitties at the moment. They are a little bit damp and not too much is going on at all. They have not perked up for anything. I was hoping that maybe there would be something that would come through and start waking them up a little bit and get them going. But alas, we have just sleeping wet cats at this stage. But patience comes to those who wait. As Brent was discussing this morning in the tent, the one thing he's learnt is patience. So we will exercise our patience and hope maybe we'll get rewarded with something a little bit later. The only one that's really stayed awake the whole time that you've been away is this little cub. It's been still grooming itself, as you can see, making sure that everywhere is absolutely spotless. What the good news is also is that it seems to be clearing up a little bit to our south. As we can see, the view that we had a little bit earlier was very dreary and rainy, whereas now it's not so bad. You can see the horizon a little bit clearer. It's not nearly as much rain falling, so that is good news. Hopefully we will end up with a dry start tomorrow, or at least a dry finish this evening, which will be very, very welcome. I know, like I say, that it's good that we have the rain and that it helps to ease the effects of the drought, but I can tell you driving around in the rain is a little bit miserable. It seems to soak in everywhere and gets into the worst places, you down your shoes and between your toes, and everything gets a little bit soggy. So I can sympathize with these lions a little bit, and it's no wonder that they're not too active. Now it's going to be interesting to see where these Nkuhumas are going to end up in the next few weeks. They are buffalo specialists after all, but there's very few buffalo around. I haven't seen any tracks of buffalo this week, and so there's not that much food available in terms of large animals. And so I'm sure they're going to start pushing back northwards again to be able to start looking for buffalo up into the Manyeleti and Buffelshoek. I was reading a study the other day of the Manyeleti Game Reserve, and they were doing the grass species that grow there, and they reckon that that is one of the best places for grazing animals to graze, and so that's why the buffalo spend a lot of time up there. There's all these nutritious grass species that they love and taste really good, and that's then what drags the lions up as well. In the winter months, those grass areas get so overgrazed that the buffalo then spread out a little bit, and then we start to see those herds coming down into the Sabi Sands area, and then the lions then obviously follow those buffalo in. Oh, a little shake. Ah, we have some movement. And a little stretch and yawn. You can see that little belly swaying from side to side. So that little cub obviously got a good meal last night. Now it's going to just go and do some bonding with the female. See a little grooming. Sometimes you'll find they'll rub up against the female's head. So May saying, have I got that right, Lou, who's a new viewer? Welcome, May. I hope you're enjoying the show so far. You want to know what a group of lions is called. Well, it's called a pride of lions. That is the collective noun for groups of lions that are together. And if it is a group of males together, we call them a coalition. So if it's females and cubs, the pride, males, a coalition. Now there's another little cub that's come out, and I think that little cub got a bit jealous that the one was getting food, and that's why it's come out to see if there's some milk that it can come and feed on as well. I would imagine it's like making yourself a nice cup of tea on a cold day. The female's body heat will keep that milk relatively warm, so it's like having a nice warm drink to keep them nice and comfortable in this cold, dreary weather. Oh, big yawn as well. So, Diana, you're wondering whether it's hard for a lone male cub to join a coalition. It is indeed. Now, it's not a very common occurrence for a male cub to find another young male somewhere and to start a coalition together, they will never be able to join a big dominant coalition. So let's say a young male cub came from somewhere else, they would never be able to join the Birminghams. The Birminghams will chase them because they're on territorial, and they know that a young male is competition. So it's competition for mating, competition for food, and so they're not going to tolerate that. But what might happen is you might get a young male, let's say from this Nkuhuma pride, and let's say a young male from the Styx pride, and the two of them get pushed out at a similar time and they find one another, and sometimes they will form coalitions together. I know the previous male that came out of this pride, who we used to call Junior, he has met up with another male and is now starting to form a coalition, and the two of them move around together. They were seen fairly recently in the Kruger National Park, quite far from here, but they have met up and they've become a coalition. So it does happen, but it is a very rare thing to happen. It's not very common at all, and the likelihood of that lone male finding a coalition member before he comes across bigger dominant males is very, very low. It's in all likelihood he's going to come across big males and he's going to get killed. So that's why males that are born in groups together or are in a cub situation where there's other males that are born to other females and can grow up together, they generally are far better off than lone males, and their chance of survival is far better as well. So DJ, you are wondering whether I've ever seen, or if we ever see, lions with the white genetics in this area. Unfortunately not, DJ. The only place that wild white lions occur within South Africa is, or in fact even in Africa, is in the Timbavati, which is a section just north of us in the Kruger National Park. There is a female there, and then there is a lone male that is in the eastern side of the Kruger National Park. It's not too far north of where we are, but it's very far east, right up against the Mozambique boundary, and that's the only other white lion. So there's only two of them that are wild white lions at the moment, and so unfortunately we do not see them here. It is a recessive gene, so the female or male has got to carry that gene to be able to pass it on and for them to be produced. The interesting thing though is that it can happen here. It's not like it can't happen. You might find at some point this gene develops and you could get a white lion being born here, but I don't think so. It would probably require a male that comes from that pride that has that white lioness and that moves down into this area and mates with a female, and we could then potentially get white cubs, but it's going to be a very rare thing to happen. Alright, so we're going to carry on with the lions, and like I say, we're going to see if we can get a little bit of activity out of them and be nice and patient. And while we do that, let's go back to Jamie and her elephants.
Look at the little one. So earlier I was a bit confused. Sorry. There's a buffalo that just bellowed at me. Where on earth did you come from? What was that about? Sounded like a buffalo distress call at first, but I can see the buffalo. And it is definitely not in distress. It's just having a jolly good scratch. Right, sorry, I was very confused earlier about the fact that, and I can't show you the buffalo because the roof is very much in the way, and I definitely can't reposition because Fang is standing on top of me, behind me. I was confused that elephant, baby elephant, had grown as fast as it would have had to reach the size of the one we were looking at earlier. And that's because it wasn't that baby. We found another one, and I think it might be this one. Now, of course, as I try to show you, it's disappeared behind this female and is now completely hidden. There we go. Come on, little one. Out you come. Out you come. I saw it earlier trying to push over a small tree, and it was utterly hilarious. I don't know where Fang is. She's gone lurking behind me. Just keep an eye out for her. She keeps disappearing. Come on, little one. Out you come. Out you come. You little bundle of mischief. You've been up to all sorts until it's time to put you on camera, and then you get all shy. Are you camera shy? You can't be camera shy. Half the world has watched you take your first steps. That is a slight exaggeration, not quite half the world. But lots and lots of people have watched you take your first steps. Come on. How'd you come? No, still hiding. My little one. I'm trying to see if this is actually Fang. She's definitely got a backwards facing tusk. And I'm sorry, I can't put her on camera either, so just watch the baby elephant for now. I just want to keep an eye on her. I think it is her, but I think she's lost the tip of that tusk. It was already very heavily notched, and I think it's fallen off, and that's why she looks a bit different. Oh, are you stick twirling? Are you practicing for the baton team? The marching band? Here we go. Hello, gorgeous. Oh, so shy today. Here we go. Look at this little one. Isn't it too sweet? Oh, the wonderful thing about baby elephants, here's the thing that most of our regular viewers know, but perhaps our newer viewers don't. Baby elephants' trunks are slightly proportionately shorter than that of the adults, so that they don't step on them and fall over and damage them. You're gorgeous. Look at you having a scratch. How's it, Fang? Okay, big girl. You're okay. You're alright, big girl. It's not me causing the trouble, it's the buffalo. Promise, it's got nothing to do with me. I'm a big girl. Alright. Okay. Hi, girl. Sorry, everybody, we can't show you, but Fang's coming up to say hello. So I'm just keeping an eye on her. You keep watching the baby because it's adorable. And I'll keep watching Fang. Hello, my big girl. Hi. Okay. Okay, girl. Alright. It's okay. Alright. You're having a good head scratch there, my girl. Okay. I hear you. We'll move as soon as we can, but we can't now. Not with you sitting on top of us. A station by Treehouse Dam for Jamie. Tax, there's Meningi and Love here. If you can just come very, very slowly. We've got one Mufuzzy that's not so happy. Negative, we're to the northern side of the dam, the one that links up to Philemon's cut line. There we go, big girl. Okay, copy, thanks, Tax. Hey, big girl. It's alright. It's fascinating to watch, just to describe what's happening. You've been watching this little baby elephant be utterly adorable. Fang's not threatening us in any way. She's just standing, just looming over us, completely still, making sure that we know that she's there and that it would be a very, very poor idea to try anything naughty. Not that we ever would, but she's just making sure she's doing her job as potentially the matriarch, but also perhaps just an older female that's been there and done that and seen a few things. Okay, girl. All right. It's okay. It's okay. I'm a big girl. Yeah, I know you're not actually eating. Here, she's going to come in front of us. Slow movements, Craig, quiet movements. Yeah, we see your little baby, and we're not going to do anything, I promise. Here she comes. There she comes. Hello, my big girl. Alright, it's okay, I see your baby. There she is, you can just show off on the left here. She's going to pop out. There she comes. Here we go, my girl. There we go. Yeah, look how protective she is. Standing between us and the baby. Here we go. Everybody's calm now. Cool. Very, very cool. Is that definitely the branch you want, big girl? Look at this. How cool is that? Plonk. Yum. Marula branch. Now, Darlene, you want to know if Fang is the matriarch of this herd of elephants. I want to make sure 100% sure that this is Fang. I'm pretty sure it is. Obviously, that distinctive right tusk that's bent backwards is quite obvious, but there's more than one elephant out here that has a bent backwards tusk. I'm pretty sure it is her, though. I think it's just that the tip has fallen off. But those of you who perhaps have screenshots of Fang from previous sightings, maybe if you could share them with me so I can check the ears as well. But I'm pretty sure that it is her. And Darlene, you want to know if she's the matriarch of this herd. I don't know for certain. I suspect she might be quite up there. She's not a young elephant, so she's a very, very large female, and her skin has slowly but surely lost elasticity, so you can see the indentations around her forehead. And that is a good indication that she's quite an old girl. And generally the older females tend to take up leadership positions within the herd itself. So whilst she might not be the matriarch necessarily, I think she might be, but while she's not the matriarch necessarily, she's definitely one of the older females responsible for the safety of the herd. And what you'll often find is sometimes you get sort of the matriarch's sisters or older daughters, that they will take the position of leading the herd, and the matriarch will walk at the back, or vice versa. The matriarch will lead the herd and the older females will walk behind her. Hello, lovely girl. Oh, yum. At least you didn't waste that marula branch. You ate all the leaves. Now, our little elephant calf has been left behind and is just about to pop out. Sorry, I don't want to take my eyes off her for too long. Just want to make sure that there's nobody sneaking up. One last look at our little elephant calf, because he's going to vanish. Yes. Yes, you. Yes, you with your stick in your mouth. And as he waddles off, let's go and find out what Brent is up to.
Well, I saw that elephant's first home, the placenta. So we found the placenta of that baby elephant. It was a really special day. And of course, I am holding a piece of an elephant here. But of course, this is a very much a retired elephant burn, but a lovely big elephant. But quite useful, one would imagine, in a... Oh, amazing. I love it when you look at things and something else just pops up next to you. So, look at this here, Brian. And see these little like teeth marks or scratch marks there? Now, nothing goes to waste out here. Now, every big bone, mostly your little bone, will eventually become absolutely nothing. And porcupine, bushveld gerbils, and lots of other little rodents and other animals, including impala and giraffe, will chew on pieces of bone if they need a bit of calcium. Now, there's been much joking about, they found some elephants, they found some lions, but they covered nearly 5,000 acres, right? We covered about, let's work it out. So we found an elephant and a caterpillar and a moth that escaped in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 meters, and we still have an elephant through there. So he's keeping his distance, but he has been feeding around us. You can just see that dark shape through there. Actually, there's more than one elephant around here now. Well, they better behave. Now, Helmut was wondering about how close you can approach an elephant bull in must. Again, Helmut, you can probably get as close as you would when he is out of must, but again, it's something I would never do unless I was pushed into that situation and had no choice. And as I said, I could have let that elephant, where was he? He was about there. I could have let that elephant get, so I was standing right here, hey, Brian? So there we go. I could have easily let that elephant get 1, 2, 3, 5 meters and done the clap to stop him coming any closer. But again, now, it's in that much closer distance that if something's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong. That's why you don't take chances with animals, and you need to keep your respect for them. But Helmut, it is safe to, in a vehicle, you can, Brian, we've been a meter from a must bull, and every elephant is different, every sighting is different, every situation is different, and you need to gauge all of those sightings individually. If you start being blasé and brazen, it is when you'll get yourself into trouble, and often that means you're going to get the animals into trouble, because people tend to react negatively to elephants that whack vehicles and stuff like that. So that's why I would always rather, or specifically on foot, keep my distance a little bit further from them. And of course, I've got Brian to worry about. You've got to look after the killer bees, you know? You can't just have the killer bees being flattened by an elephant. Now, just to make sure that everyone knows that I'm not as I've got James's camp in the tent. So I couldn't help myself. I've been waiting so long to do that. Now, I mentioned a story from northern Botswana a bit earlier about an elephant running away from a rabid steenbok, and that prompted Sarah to say, well, elephants, can they get rabies? Well, all mammals have the capability of getting rabies. So yes, all mammals can get rabies, and I've never actually heard of a reported case of rabies in elephants, but I'm sure there have been. But that would possibly be one of the scariest things in the world. I mean, a rabid steenbok is an incredibly scary thing. Now imagine 7 tons of rabid elephant bull charging and trying to flatten everything in its path. Now rabies is quite interesting because there's a couple of little anecdotes or rules when it comes to dealing with rabies, and I've unfortunately had to put down quite a few animals with rabies over my years in the bush, mostly domestic dogs and cats that have shown rabid signs, and the odd waterbuck, the odd steenbok, but when we do find anything with rabies, and definitely with the full-blown symptoms, we will put it down and burn the carcass, send the brain off to Honest to Put for verification, but just to make sure, we burn the carcasses. Now, the rabies virus is not a very tough virus, so as it means it has to come from the saliva, and when you get bitten, it has to go into your skin. Now, one of the biggest vectors of rabies out here, where did it go? Oh, it's on the top shelf. I don't know if James can reach this. Here we go. Is a jackal, and here we've got the skull of a black-bucked jackal. So, it's stuck together. I don't know whether it's stuck together on purpose or not, so I'm just going to leave it like that. But as you can see, so rabies is in the salival glands. So if you get bitten and it pierces the skin, that is one of the biggest problems with rabies. And well, fortunately these days there are some ways, as we saw with Sindile, that you are able to get get away from the rabies with inoculation and stuff with human beings, you have to get it within the first couple of hours of being bitten. And even if you have the slight suspicion of a rabid animal biting you, you need to get the injections. Fortunately, the injections are much nicer than they used to be. And there was a rabies outbreak because of the drought at the end of 2015, beginning of 2016, in Hoedspruit, which is the closest town to us. And I actually went out and spent a lot of time on foot in that area on the reserve where my parents live, and that's where Jamie and I have a house. And most of the black-backed jackals were destroyed because of rabies. We lost a whole pack of wild dogs to rabies. So we actually went and got inoculated before being bitten, just to it makes it a lot easier to deal with it when it happens. But we will chat about that. I'm sure there might be a few more questions about rabies. So if you do, it is one of the slightly more macabre and more interesting diseases. Please send your questions through to #safariLIVE or questions@wildearth.tv, and try answer some more questions about rabies if you have any. And I think of course, any questions are welcome. But let's go see if Tristan's lions have decided to wake up, or are they as drowsy as Tristan is?
Well, they are still very, very sleepy, Brent. They have not decided to wake up at all. There's just one that's going to the toilet, but that is about it, and I would be pretty sure that it's going to lie down shortly as well. Now, Viam and I were discussing the rabid elephant story, and we reckon a rabid elephant would be quite scary, but Viam's still of the firm opinion that a rabid hyena is way scarier, and we know that Brent from the past believes the same thing. Also, on the subject of the elephant and Brent, I'm not sure you can say that you found an elephant that walked into the tent, even though he did find his caterpillar and his butterfly. I'll give him that. But the elephant pretty much walked into the entrance of the tent, and that then constitutes him bumping and not actually finding. Now, while we were sitting on the vehicle and the the lions, should I say, sorry, they've been sleeping, I was looking around our vehicle to try to see if I could find anything else to show you guys, and I managed to find a beetle. That's all I've got from inside the car. So we have a little chafer beetle that is sitting on our dashboard. It is just minding its own business. It seems very happy in the light. It's not too worried about it. It is still alive, so its legs do move, but I'll put my finger there so you can just get an idea of the size of it. But I'm pretty sure that this beetle has been attracted by the big light that we have on at the moment that is illuminating my face, and so it came flying in and has landed and looks very, very happy with itself in the light. So very, very good to see. It's nice when we have a few other smaller things that arrive other than the sleeping lions. It keeps us entertained, and it looks like the cub and the female are having a little bit of a cuddling session. Look at that. Does that not look like the picture of absolute comfort? On the back, yawning, paws in. That is one happy little cub. And it's stopped raining completely now, so I'm sure that cub is very happy to be a little drier than what it was earlier. Isn't that cute? And now its paws are firmly placed in its mom's face. Warriors cat lover, you're asking how strong is a lion's sense of smell? Well, their sense of smell is very, very good. I've seen lions at times pop their heads up and start sniffing into the wind, and that wind that's blowing, they sniff out buffalo that were over a kilometer away, so they were able to smell those buffalo coming. Maybe they also heard a little bit, but there was more the scent. You could see them lifting their heads and taking big deep breaths as the wind gusted past them, so their sense of smell is very good. It's also why they'll utilize their urine to scent mark, is it leaves a scent, and these lions then can come past and smell it and be able to know that there was other lions there and who that lion is. Remember, they have that organ in the roof of their mouth called the organ of Jacobson that analyzes that chemical scent, and it's able to then calculate what's going on. So their sense of smell is really, really strong, and it is a major feature of their anatomy and the way that they survive and interact with their environment. You can see that little cub has still got a very pink nose. It's starting to get black on the edges, but the middle is still very pink. As they get a little bit older, it's often a genetic thing, but as they get older, generally the nose starts to darken a little bit, and you end up with a black nose when they get to adulthood. So, Marcy, these cubs are now about, I'm just do the math, they were born in April, May, so they're about 8 months now. That's how old they are. These are the older cubs. There was a younger litter that was born, but unfortunately they passed away due to mange. They were born in about, I think it was end of May, beginning of June, and unfortunately with the mange that came around and then white muscle disease, they ended up succumbing to those because they probably were a little bit younger. Their immune systems weren't quite as strong as the older cubs, and they unfortunately passed away. So these are all older cubs. So Lou is saying to me that she thinks one from that litter is still alive. I'm not 100% sure, Lou. Well, we'll have to check it out, and thanks for the update and the info. It would make sense because there is one that is a little bit smaller than the rest. But I actually haven't seen these lions moving in the last week. The last time I had them, they were running into the bush, and then they found themselves a waterbuck meal that they ate. So I didn't get to actually see the varying sizes. And today they've been very stationary. They've hardly moved around at all. They've been quite lazy. So I haven't seen the cubs and can't really tell which ones are which at the moment. They're all kind of huddled together. But it would make sense if there is one that did survive. We'll have to ask some of the viewers if any of you out there know exactly which cubs are alive and who belongs to who and can help us out. It would be great to hear from you. Remember, you can use hashtag safariLIVE or send it through to questions@wildearth.tv. Now, it is getting a lot darker. We're starting to get quite gloomy out here, so I would imagine that these lions should start waking up and start moving around, so hopefully we will see that. Although with these fuller bellies, I think they might just take a little bit of an extended nap tonight. And Lynn, you're asking whether the lions' tummies will make a noise when they're hungry and if we will be able to hear it. Well, Lynn, I have heard lion tummies and little grumbles coming from them, but it's not really when they're only hungry. I've heard it when they're full, when they are just plain normal, and when they are quite hungry as well. So you can sometimes hear it. In this case today, they were a little bit fuller, so I don't think we'd hear any grumbles for hunger. They've definitely had a good meal last night, so there's going to be none of that. But you would be able to hear if there was a little grumbling of the stomach, much like as people we can hear it. It's the same thing with these lions. Oh, good afternoon. Or should I say good evening? Seems like she's just rolled over, and I don't think she wants to get up just yet. I think that's more just out of comfort than anything else. I always love when lionesses roll like this. It looks completely ridiculous to have this massive cat on its back with legs in the air. And you think of domestic cats, it's very seldom that they actually sleep like this. Domestic cats tend to sleep on their side. So it's a nice trait that the big cats have when they lie like this. And look at that one scratching its tummy with its paw. Well, it stopped now, fortunately, but they do sometimes do it. They use that front paw and they run it along their stomach, and basically alleviates the itch that they have on that chest area, which is quite cute. And you can see it shaking its head every now and then. Now that the rain has stopped, I would imagine the flies are going to be a bit of an issue. Rais, you're wondering whether male and female lion cubs display different traits. In terms of behavior, not really. The males might be slightly more dominating around carcasses and at playtime because they might be a little bit stronger than what the female cubs are. But there's no real trait in terms of behavior. In terms of their physiological aspects, you'll find that the males will grow much quicker than what the females will do. So if you had to put a male and female cub of the same age next to one another now at 8 months, you'll find the male will be a lot more bulky. Now, if you have been watching the show, and maybe you have seen the cubs of Karula, which is our female leopard that we see in this area, she has a male and female cub, and you can see the size difference quite clearly between the two of them, even though they are the same age. So in terms of physiologically, yes, there are a few traits that are slightly different. Also, as the males get a little bit older, so their mane starts to come out. But in terms of behavior, it's all pretty much the same. They'll all be very playful. They'll all spend a lot of time around one another, grooming one another, cuddling up to mom, being very inquisitive of insects. and it actually becomes more down to an individual basis. So you'll find some will be a little bit more timid, some will be a bit more playful. So it's not male or female, it's more just an individual animal that will determine how they are. But that activity was very short-lived. As you can see, the female is back to sleep again. She's decided it's not quite time to wake up. But like I was saying, it is getting very gloomy now, and the wind is picking up, so conditions are really good for them to hunt again. I know they did eat last night, but they are not exactly stuffed, so if there's something around, they could very well get up and start moving and hunting. I'm surprised we haven't seen any of them actually putting their nose to the wind and just scenting, just to see if there is anything. We were talking earlier about their sense of smell. Often you'll find in windy conditions, the lions just pick up their heads, and every now and then they just take in a few breaths of air and try and see if they can pick up any signs of animals around them. You can see she's very focused on that vehicle that just left at the moment. She's listening to it driving away, and it's now starting to get out of our audio range, and that's maybe why she's also not too concerned anymore. But you can see, look at how the ears are moving. So those ears are just like little satellite dishes. They're picking up all the little bits of sound that are coming out around us, and they're able to work out what's going on and hear any rustles in the grass or any approaching threats that might come through. Alright, so we are going to probably leave these lions fairly shortly. They don't look like they're going to get up to too much, and so while we do that, let's go back to Jamie and see what she's got for us.
I haven't got much to show you. Unfortunately, it was really time for us to leave the elephants. They were disappearing off into some dense vegetation, and obviously it started to get a little bit dark for elephant viewing. I'm starting to have my doubts. Not starting to have my doubts. I had my doubts from the beginning about whether or not that is that particular baby that we saw stumbling around a couple of months ago. And the reason I say that is, unless perhaps its mother was somewhere elsewhere and it was just being brave, because I never saw it suckle from that younger female. But unless I'm mistaken, and perhaps I am, I have this memory of the mother of the new calf being quite an old female, or at least quite a large female with quite large tusks. And perhaps I'm misremembering it. Perhaps, I mean, I really was focused on the elephant calf, but I don't seem to remember it being that small. But maybe just the calf went wandering and I couldn't see the mother. I'm not 100% convinced though. Could be the same herd. I seem to remember vaguely Taylor saying something about the fact that, sorry, I'm just going to turn this radio down. Something about the fact that after she saw the new baby, she saw another new baby. And I don't know whether it was with that herd or not. I'll have to ask her when she gets back, or when we get back. I thought, just quickly, although it was a bit knob thorny, very, very hooked thorns, I thought maybe we could come and visit the old hyena den. Now, James said he found lots of tracks of hyenas here, and that he thought perhaps they might be around. But the elephants have made life even more difficult than it was previously to get in here. So hold on a moment. Now, if it is active, we won't be able to stay for very long because it is dark, but it might just be worth checking. Still in this constant source of sort of optimism that we're going to find a hyena den. You never know. Okay, let's try this. Oh, this isn't going to work either with this silly roof on. Okay, let's try going around this way. I probably should have thought this out better. Sorry, Craig, you're going to have to duck. Well, no, you might not, actually. The trees will protect, I mean, the roof will protect you. Okay, round the corner we go. Everybody duck. And nobody's home. Oh well. It was worth a try. I don't actually know where James's hyena den that he thought he'd found was, where he said there was signs of hyena activity. I'm not 100% sure. I thought it was the old Philemon's cutline den, but I might be mistaken about that. But nobody's home. Okay. Back around. So while James navigates his way back out of here, let's go back into the tent with Brent.
Hi. I went fossicking again, and I found something so cool. Now, it is a little spider. I'm not sure which spider species it is. Oh, I don't want to move that. So let's jump across to the microscope. Look at that. Now you can see the spinnerets on the abdomen of this little spider. It is minute. Now, that's its egg sac, and she was busy adding another layer to it. So I've actually collected some grass for her that she can be able to stay close by. I'm not going to leave her inside in case she has to wander off and go get food. So I've got some other grass I'm going to put her in. But isn't that amazing? You can see the spinnerets. Ooh, the upset elephant outside. I find that absolutely amazing. I'm just going to change the focus so you can have a look at her egg sac. Now let's see if I can do this without making it. Actually, I think I'm going to take the extra light away. And there we go. Now look at that silk. Oh. Look at that silk. How fine that silk is. And now she's taken the little branchlets of this grass and managed to create a little safe haven for her egg sac there. So there we go. You can see. Oh, it's quite scary, isn't it, Brian? It is. Okay, well, I'm going to try. I haven't been able to have a look at her face yet. I think it's just one of the little grass spiders. I think she might have the male in her jaws. So I'm going to try flip her over. So let's not get seasick and watch Brent try a microscope. There we go. Let's do it this way. You can watch me try very delicately turn this over. Oh. No. Is that it there? Is that the right one? I need something to put a bit of weight on there so it doesn't roll. Now this is a very delicate procedure, as you can see. And just getting it lined up. Does that look scary enough to be a... Oh dear, sorry about this, guys. It is going to be worth it once I get this right. Actually, I'm just going to clip a little piece of grass that seems to be rolling it over. Just wonder why, although this knife might be a little bit overkill for grass snipping, but it is useful. There we go. I need it. You know, when one needs to do delicate stuff, use the scissors. Now, I'm quite... Oh, see, there is something else there. I think it's something she's eaten. I'm not sure whether it's the male spider. Okay, there we go. Is any more other delicate snipping needs to be done? Snip. Very delicate. Snip. Okay. Let's try again. Now, let's just make sure we get the right... Oh, see there? Okay. That's not what I was looking for. There. Oh, okay. Wait, hang on. No, every time I let it go, it just rolls out. I don't think I should hold it. Okay? If we just do that. There we go. Okay, let's go back to the microscope. Oh, is it rolling away from us? Oh no, don't roll away. There we go, you can see her head. And the black thing off to the right of her there is actually, it looks like another spider species she might have been eaten. It doesn't look like an ant. It's rolling away. It's rolling away, don't roll away. Oh dear, I do this. Oh my goodness. Oh no. Come back. Okay, there's the thing that's dead. Okay, so it looks like another spider, a different species of spider. I thought it might be the male. Is it alive? Did I see movement? Now you must remember there could be tiny little mites. Was that a water droplet? I almost thought I saw some movement. I think it was my imagination. This is so cool. Okay, I'm going to try it one more time to get a non-rolling away. Okay, we're nearly there. Whoop. Oh no, other way. There we go. Okay, let's change the focus. Let me see if we can see those eyes on top. There we go. Well done. I'm patting myself on the back at the moment. Finally. So there we go. So some female spiders are quite protective of their egg sac. So she'll sit there and protect it. I mean, look at those fine little hairs. Now, those are little sensory organs that she'll use when she hunts as well. So a spider like this is not really going to hunt using a web. She's going to march up and down and along all the little grass seeds, and that's how she's going to hunt. Now, when I say she's minute, she's less than a millimeter. And she's right on that egg sac. And quite often at this time, she's just had that big meal. She's probably not going to hunt again until these babies hatch. So that's why I've collected her a whole bunch of stuff. And I've got a little vase that I'm going to make for her, so we can keep an eye on her in the tent and see if those spiders hatch in the next little while. So as I said, she's not going to eat while she's protecting that egg sac. That is pretty cool. I'm not going to lie. What do you think?
Yeah.
Next Predator versus Alien. Now, Sid, speaking about spiders, this spider will definitely be venomous, but I don't think its mouth parts are big enough for us to ever be bitten by it. But Sid was wondering, what is the most venomous spider here? It's probably between the violin spider and the black button spider as the two most venomous. Now, you do get other ones like sack spiders, which are terrible things. I fortunately have not been bitten by many of these things in my life. I've managed to be quite lucky. Now, that is very cool. Okay, so let's show you what I'm going to do to make her a home, so we can come away from the quite scary looking spider. There we go, there we go. See, I've even got some indigofera, some flowers, just to make it a bit pretty. I mean, after my James's Valentine bouquet, I decided maybe I should think about doing this on a more permanent basis, you know. What do you think? Maybe not. And we've got some Shangan cabbage. There we go. And let's take a little bit of herringbone that she's on. Pop it in there so she's nice and safe. And you can see there how small she is. I'm going to put it down. Do you need a bit of extra light? Let me just turn her around for you. So you can see how incredibly small she is. I mean, those indigofera flowers are tiny. There she is there, protecting her eggs. Now I'm going to just put my finger behind, and my baby finger. So I was actually hunting for moths when I spotted her. Okay, well, the piece de resistance. There we go. Now we're cooking. Let's go. There's a little bit of water in the bottom, so all good. Let's pop it there. Okay, so I've got one more really fascinating thing to show you in the microscope, but it's going to take me some time so I don't make you all seasick. So let's go back to Tristan and see what he's up to.
Well, while Brent sets up his microscope, we've left those lions. We've left them to sleep, although we did wake them up a little bit. Unfortunately, our alarm went off. So I know it happened to Jamie the other day and Wendy, and our alarm decided, or the hooter decided to go off uncontrollably. So rather than disturb the lions, we decided to carry on and leave them be. They were still fairly sleepy, though, when we left. They were all lying down. None of them had run away or anything like that, but when the hooter does go off, they do get a little bit of a fright because it's a little bit new for them. So I think what we're going to do is we're just going to slowly backtrack the way that they came. And what I'm hoping for is that if they did have a meal, potentially where those vultures were sitting earlier is maybe there will be some signs of hyenas. So we're going to try and see if maybe we get lucky and find a hyena that's just trailing along and maybe picks up some of the smells for those scraps that could have been left behind. That's what we're going to try and do. It's become very, very dark, and obviously it's quite wet out here, so I'd imagine most of our daylight animals have all decided to go to sleep long ago. So I'm pretty sure that the nocturnals will be out, and it's actually that time of the day where it's time for a spotlight. So I'm just going to try and get my spotlight out. During the chaos of the hooter going off, I tried to check the batteries, and so the cable is just a little bit caught up here. But all is good. Now, as I said before, in conditions like this, it's actually a really good time to be out at this time of the day, because you find that a lot of your nocturnal animals will start coming out earlier than normal. So things like genets and civets and pangolins and aardvarks and all these tough to see nocturnal animals do start coming out in weather like this. And in fact, most of the pangolin sightings I've had has been in quite dreary, rainy conditions, and so maybe that would be something, wouldn't it, to get a pangolin. It's been a long time since I've seen one. Actually, the last one I saw was in December of 2015, so it would be good to see them. And we're just coming past Buffelshoek Dam. Just want to see maybe if there's any sign of a hippo out of the water starting to do its grazing. We did come past here earlier and there was no hippos in the dam itself, but you never know. Sometimes in dreary conditions, hippos do walk around during the day, but what we might get is a cacophony of frog calls. So I'm just going to actually switch off here. Can you hear that? Lots of different frogs calling. We've got the painted reed frogs, which are ticking away. Tick, tick, tick. I did hear some banded rubbers earlier. I can't hear them now. They've gone quiet. There the banded rubbers are. There we go. So the frogs are going to be incredible tonight. After this rain, they're all going to start coming out and starting to call and vocalize like this so that they can reproduce. They're looking for a mate, and then they can start doing their mating process, and tomorrow morning we'll probably still see the back end of that, and they'll start to be laying their eggs for the tadpoles to form in these puddles, while there are still quite a few puddles around. There's also a thickney calling, so a bird species that's also here. Isn't that amazing? I love coming and sitting and listening to the frogs calling like this. It's such a special thing to do. Very, very nice. Now, unfortunately, we won't be able to see any of them with our rain flaps. If I had to go any more forward for VM to be able to focus a camera, we're going to end up in Buffelshoek Dam, which is not where we want to be. I don't think Wendy would take too kindly to being submerged. But sometimes it's just so nice just to sit and listen and enjoy the sounds, and often after rain the sounds are at their best. All the insects are coming out, and frogs, as we've just heard. The only ones that are a little bit miserable are the birds. They tend to be a little bit quieter while it's still raining, but this evening, well, tomorrow morning, once the rain has stopped, there'll be an explosion. Oh, sorry, a little scrub hare came darting out there, so I luckily avoided that. I was busy turning around to talk to the camera and didn't see it until the last second, but all's well that ends well. Scrub hare is safe. Now, alright, so we're going to carry along and see if maybe we do get lucky with a hyena as we follow back on the tracks of the lions. So while we do that, let's go back to Jamie and get an update from her.
sighting updates at the moment, but I think that Tristan and I have had a very similar ideas in our search for spotted hyenas. Whilst Tristan goes back to investigate where he thinks there might be a carcass, which would make sense because that would explain the full bellies of the Nkuhumas, we are trundling along a bit closer to camp in the hope that perhaps we might see one of them wandering around. They do like to come and visit us every now and again. And just let me say that I do fully sympathize with poor Tristan and Wendy's horn going off. I know exactly, vividly, what that feels like. She does have amazing timing. She likes to do it in cat sightings, apparently. She did it to me in the leopard sighting during a countdown into our television advert break. And now she's done it to Tristan in his lion sighting. It was quite entertaining listening to it over the Game Drive channel, though, which is the way in which we communicate with other guides. And just listening to one of the other guides calling Tristan, going, "Tristan, is everything okay? Are you alright?" And poor frazzled Tristan, who I can just imagine is desperately trying every possible technique to get the car to shut up. Pulling the key out, pressing all the buttons. It is the most paralyzing feeling. I could just imagine. I didn't even have to try and imagine because I know exactly what that feels like. Well, we all do. It's happened to all of us at one point or another in our career. I did it gently the other day with Wendy's horn that I didn't know worked. Rusty's doesn't, but Wendy's does, and I accidentally knocked it with my knee, and it just went barp barp in a really half-hearted manner. And some curious looks from the guides that were in the sighting with me. So many bronze-winged coursers in the road. One of my favorite nocturnal bird species. Here we go, he's running along in the... well, now he's too far in the front. Hey, little one. There's our little bronze-winged courser. Dashing about. Hi. Giving the tail a little fluff. So it's a nocturnal bird species. Dashing along. And much like with owls, it's okay to have the lights on them initially. As soon as they fly away, then you take the lights off them and let them get on with their nocturnal business. Plop, plop, plop. Are you charging me, little bronze-winged courser? I love them. I think they're really beautiful birds. And you can see from the size of their eyes that they're nocturnal. Excuse me. Thank you. Sorry to disturb you. Okay, let's go see if there's any hyenas that have come lurking round camp. They like to pay us a visit every now and again. And James, who has a habit of leaving his shoes out to dry outside of his room, is one day going to come outside and find one shoe. Apparently he found a scorpion in his shoe once. That's also a possibility. Scorpion climbing into your shoe, spider. My highlight once was a tree frog or a foam nest frog that had crawled into my shoe. I have to tell you, that was a very, very surprising sensation. I didn't force my foot into the shoe. I just started to, as I touched it, I felt it start to wriggle in my boots. I cannot tell you. I didn't scream, I didn't squeal. I was very, very self-contained, I feel, for finding a frog in one's shoe. But it was a distinct surprise. I'm not sure who got the biggest surprise, me or the frog. I think maybe the frog. It did look at me with a thoroughly disgruntled expression after I tipped it out. That wasn't my fault, though. I didn't even leave that shoe outside. Just decided it wanted to be inside there. Told you, foam nest frogs find their ways into the strangest places. There's one inside Alex's rowing machine. Well, there was. I think it's probably moved now. Richie, you want to know whether or not we ever get scared driving in the dark? What if a predator attacks? No, I don't get scared. The animals are never going to jump into the vehicles with us. The chances of that happening is next to nothing. I have never ever had a bad encounter with a predator. Obviously at night they are more bold, and you definitely wouldn't want to walk in the bush in the middle of the night. That is a different story. That is when you really run the risk of being badly injured or probably actually killed. And often by lions, because lions know at night. They're a completely different animal. They know they are the dominant predator. So no, I don't really get scared driving around at night. I don't ever take it for granted. It's important to remember we're in a wilderness area, but I'm not afraid of a predator attacking us. The only time I've ever been frightened in the dark had nothing to do with animals and everything to do with, it was a long time ago, with going out on an anti-poaching patrol. And not as a trained anti-poacher, I'm not a trained anti-poacher, but we saw somebody, we'd come back from an evening out, and we saw somebody trying to get into the reserve. And it was just because we had a dog with us that we actually spotted it, because the dog barked. And we then couldn't contact anybody, so we went out in our vehicles to try and sort of drive the fence line with lights flashing and so on, just as a deterrent. We didn't know what else to do. And it was right at the start of my guiding career. And I remember being quite scared then, even though the chances of poachers necessarily doing something to us or drawing attention to themselves at that point was slim. It was still quite scary. And being stuck once in the bush and having to go walking into the darkness to try and find logs to stuff under the wheels of the car, that was also quite scary. I've had one or two instances where I've been a bit nervous in the dark, but never just driving around like this. This doesn't bother me too much. I'd sooner drive round here than I would round central Johannesburg in the dark. And actually, speaking of it, and speaking of this sort of situation, not to go into anything morbid, but just to say that our thoughts are with the staff members at the Rhino Orphanage that was attacked a few days ago. It was a deeply, deeply traumatizing thing for them and, of course, for the animals, but I think of them often, and I hope that they are on their road to recovery. Right, let's move on to more cheerful things and go across to Brent in his tent of terror.
Some very scary things in the African bush. And one of them is, of course, rabid animals. So we have a question. I closed down all my technological advantages so we could have this dark and airy surroundings. And one of the questions, and forgive me, I cannot remember who it was from, was that, can reptiles get rabies? And very happily, no, they can't. From Clayton. So, no, rabies only attacks the mammalian nervous system. So, reptiles, fish, birds, all cannot get rabies. And there was another question. What is the scariest animal or strangest animal I've seen with rabies? Or weirdest animal I've seen with rabies? And that was... from Shannon. Thank you. Sorry, this is my fault for closing down my machine, but I wanted to be very scary and airy, and that was, of course, the steenbok. Nothing stranger than a steenbok. Now, of course, as night sets, some very scary creatures, especially in this wet weather, are going to be out and about. Now we're going to go to complete darkness and the microscope. And now we are in complete darkness in the tent. Brian, I'm scared.
Me too.
Okay. Whoa, look at that! So there we go. I'm using a UV light on a scorpion, and it is the same species of scorpion that stung James, Vitatus. And this one actually was found already expired in Brian's tent. Now, scorpions are one of the few animals that will actually come out in UV light, and they come out in this incredible colors, blues, greens, and other things. And now, there's a lot of different theories, but it's thought that mostly the scorpion's eyesight are able to pick up the UV light spectrum, so they are able to see each other. You see how it changes as you get a little bit further away. Now, when you're close, like we are with the microscope, oh, something just ran across the dead scorpion. They come out as quite blue, almost electric blue. But if we switch back to Brian's camera, they come out as luminous green. How cool is that? So depending on the distance of the UV light or how close you can zoom in, the scorpions can come out as different colors. And they do love to come out in this wet weather. Now, I think this is the first time we've ever gone dark in the tent. Only lots of little bugs running around. And we are getting to the last minute of the sunset safari. And what nefarious creatures will be out tonight? Snakes, scorpions, the Nkahuma Pride, and hopefully Queen Karula will all be taking advantage of the darkness to catch whatever prey is out there. The killer bees will transform as darkness sets. Killer bees. Into some very happy people having some apple juice around the fire. Oh no fire tonight, but at least we'll be snug and warm after a wet day. Unfortunately, not as wet as everyone else, but we have thoroughly enjoyed the tent with you. Amazing elephant from the tent. Amazing elephant with Jamie. Great to catch up with Fangs Herd. And the Nkumas. No, they didn't do too much, but still great to see them. So join us tomorrow morning for the sunrise safari from the Killer Bees and the rest of Safari Live. Adieu.